Podcast City Network.
Hey guys, this is Chris, and we are live for episode 34 of Final Score on Facebook Live. And this is a very exciting but painful episode for me because, as you can see, I am clad in the horrible maize and blue because Notre Dame not only lost but got manhandled by Michigan. I'm just glad we went and picked up that win yesterday, though, at least to try and make it a little better.
You guys had to pull one out of where to make that happen. But, this is kind of a delayed Halloween episode for us, really. I mean, you're dressed up as a winner.
Oh, God.
And I'm making my best Gardner Minshew impression over here.
I don't know. I think I like the blind ref pictures I saw more, honestly.
I did. I went as a blind referee. And, of course, my girlfriend went as a Detroit Lions player because that's... that was fitting.
You know, it's funny though. I didn't even dress up as anything sports related. I was Jake from State Farm.
Were you were Jake from State Farm?
I was Jake from State Farm.
It's pretty funny. But you are dressed like a winner. I mean, only. Oh yeah. I hope y'all can hear this.
Like someone pooped in the cornflakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bask in it. Bask in the glory.
Oh, it's like being basked in slime.
Yes. Go blue. All right, that's enough. I won't torture you anymore.
Yeah, this is already bad enough, you know.
Literally, that whole fight song is like 4 minutes long, so we don't need to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd love to do every second of it, but we have a show to do. And to make sure that you keep up with all things Final Score, you got to make sure to follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PCN Final Score. Give us a like, give us a follow. Check mark for notifications. That way you can make sure you can get updates from us anytime we post anything, as long as I can continue to English today. I don't know. I'll wear all this Michigan stuff. I feel dumbed down.
All that great knowledge from one of the greatest universities in the world is just kind of overloading your brain right now.
No wonder this hat's so big.
Exactly. It's got to fit my big ass head in it.
There's so many jokes I can make out of that, but we don't have enough time.
Anyway.
But we also are on a
We did have other college football.
We did, yes, we did. But we have a myriad of different platforms you can catch all of our great episodes on, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and Google Play Music. Make sure to search keyword Final Score and find all of our great content there. But we must get to the multiple elephants in the room, and that is known as college football. Because it's been wild. It was a wild weekend.
Yeah, it was a wild weekend. I had a rough week in my picks this week.
Well, I wasn't quite as rough as you. I mean, somehow I squeaked out that Notre Dame one, though.
Hey, it helped. But, we had a lot of, as you may or may not know, we try to pick the top 16 games every week, whether it's close spreads or marquee matchups, things of that nature. Of course, we don't pick the... who did Clemson play this week? Wofford.
Yeah.
Which is like a Division I AA team. We don't pick those games.
That's like watching Bethune-Cookman, play Alabama. Like, there's no reason for that.
Yeah.
But
so we try to pick some of the best college football games that we can find, and usually it ends up in weeks like this where either we both do really horrible or we both do really well, or one or the other.
Where you go negative and I have a winning record.
This is actually, I think, the first week that I've had a negative week, though. I've at least broken even.
Pat yourself on the back. That's a good one.
Yeah. I think this is my first negative week all season, so I'm going to take solace in that.
But you know what? Looking at some of these games, a lot of them were really, really wild. First one right off the bat, Boston College, Syracuse. Boston College came out and smacked the Orangemen right in the mouth, giving me the W for that pick. Well, you took the big ol' L. Yeah,
Syracuse was -3 for this game. Figured, it's kind of a tough game to pick. Both teams are really trying to find themselves, and Boston College had a huge win there.
Oh, yeah, in multiple ways. Look at our next game. Nebraska traveled out to Indiana to take on Purdue. Purdue, though, was not favored in this one, but ended up coming out with the big win.
Purdue at home has been tough for a lot of teams this year, and we didn't know if Adrian Martinez was actually going to play for Nebraska, so we were kind of on the fence on this.
Right.
Ended up both picking Nebraska, and it blew up in our faces
horribly.
But Purdue have a game. You
Gotta give
deserve one every once in a while, I guess.
Every once in a while. But then look at our next game. Wake Forest was at home taking on NC State. Can be a pesky team at times, but was not yesterday as Wake Forest handled business, took it 44-10.
Yeah, spread here was 7.5 in favor of Wake Forest. But the big thing here, Wake Forest is now 7-1. They are right behind Clemson in that ACC division.
Ooh, it's gonna get wild.
If you're Wake Forest, how mad are you that you're in that division and not in Virginia's division where you'd be easily winning right now?
Oh yeah, and automatically in the ACC title game at this point, really.
Yeah.
But looking at our next game, Virginia Tech traveled all the way to South Bend, Indiana to take on the Golden Domers of Notre Dame. And this one had me on the edge of my seat all the way to the end. I was even saying, come on, touchdown, Jesus, give me just one. give me just one. And then he did, because Ian Book ended up scrambling to the right to the corner of the end zone to end up stealing this one away from Virginia Tech, 21-20.
Yeah, this was a really tough game for Notre Dame. I don't think they really fully expected that Virginia Tech would come out and just punch him in the mouth like they did.
Especially after we beat them by 30 last year. That's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's comparable to what Michigan and Wisconsin did last year. Michigan handled Wisconsin. Wisconsin marked that day on the calendar. Virginia Tech had to as well. I watched a little bit of this game. I think you had more than just touchdown Jesus on your side. You had a couple of really questionable calls. Now the targeting was actually targeting.
The targeting was actually
quarter.
called correctly, and I was glad to see that because that looked pretty nasty from the
At
onset.
first, it didn't look that bad, but when you see he led in with his head, and it didn't look good. So
right.
that was a good call.
The crown of the helmet, but
there's a lot of other really weird, questionable calls in this game. So if you're a Virginia Tech fan, I feel for you. That was a rough way to lose a game.
Hey, there's some calls that kind of went both ways, but you know what? There's some amazing plays, especially by what I will see in the future as probably one of the best NFL wide receivers when he gets to that level in Chase Claypool, because I've never seen a guy tiptoe tap dance on the side of the field so well as he did. There was some catches that honestly NFL wide receivers would have trouble making.
Wasn't there another guy that was supposed to be like the Michael something Floyd, I think?
Yeah,
Mayweather,
then he decided drinking was too important, fell asleep in the middle of a roadway to police, and then woke up to police tapping on his window.
Hopefully he doesn't follow that route. But
hopefully
no,
not.
that was an amazing catch and a huge win for Notre Dame. They're still, you're still playing for a New Year's Six game.
That's true. We can still try and get it. Definitely no playoff though.
Now playoffs are definitely out.
No. Unless the unthinkable happens and everybody somehow starts losing ahead of us, and we end up with like 3 loss teams in the lose.
You're gonna have to hope that Michigan wins out, makes the playoff, and then everybody else ahead of them is just
cannibalizing each other.
Just loses.
Yeah, but I don't see that happening. But looking at our next game, TCU traveled over to take on Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was favored by 2.5 and got the job done and won this one 34-27.
I actually watched the entirety of this game. This was a big game for them, and the records don't necessarily say it, but in the Big 12, you have to play every single team every single year. And Oklahoma State, they're really just trying to build this year for next year. I mean, they've got some stud playmakers. You got Spencer Sanders, who's a freshman. He's one of the leading quarterback in as far as rushing yards in the country. Chuba Hubbard, who is the leading rusher in the nation,
amazing
player. Had another monster game. Dylan Stoner, one of their sophomore wide receivers. So they've got a lot of guys that are juniors and under that could still all come back next year. This team is really kind of putting themselves in a good position to compete for the Big 12 next year.
Yeah, they most definitely are. But looking at our next game, we had a nice little rivalry game between the teams from Kansas. Kansas State traveling to Kansas in Manhattan. I tell you what, this game I thought was going to be a little bit closer, but Kansas State ended up taking this one 38-10.
I did too. That's why I picked Kansas in this game, just because the fact that Kansas State coming off that huge win against Oklahoma, and they're going on the road, and Kansas always has a couple of those games up their sleeve which is what happened the last time Kansas State beat, I think it was a top 5 team.
Right.
They turned right around, played at Kansas, and lost that next game. So I figured there was another upset in the works. I was going to go with it. Of course, I went against my better judgment on that. But, you got to take chances a little bit. If you want to win this competition, you got to take some chances. So
that's right, but that's why I'm still ahead of you. But looking at our next game, we had the big matchup of the weekend. Georgia taking on Florida in the biggest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville. And this one surely didn't disappoint.
Yeah, it was Georgia early. It was big time Georgia early, and then Florida. Kyle Trask looks really good.
Oh yeah,
he looks like he's really going to be a very good quarterback for them in the future. This is another game where we both had picked Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the fence. I was actually starting to type in Georgia.
I did too.
And changed my mind. And that's what I get for doing that.
Yeah, we both kind of suffered that bug as Georgia ended up taking this one 24-17. And Georgia, like you said, took it early, but Florida still was hanging around, trying to make it a game. But inevitably, Georgia took it and takes control of the SEC East. But looking at our next game, we had another big rivalry game in the state of Florida as the Miami Hurricanes traveled up north to Tallahassee to take on the Florida State Seminoles in Doak Campbell. And Florida State was favored by 3 in this, both teams coming in with 4-4 records, but Miami got the job done 27-10.
Do you remember when this game actually used to mean something?
Yeah, like 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This game actually used to be a very marquee matchup every year. But both teams, you don't really know what you're getting. Of course, Manny Diaz took over, and he's trying to mold the team in his image. And Florida State, if this isn't another check mark on the box of should we fire Phil Willie Taggart, this is another yes column.
Hashtag fire Willie Taggart.
I mean, he should have already been fired beforehand, but, I guess it'll take another, couple of beatings like this before they maybe get it through their head.
Well, maybe if they lose the rest of the season, it'll just go ahead and just put the pin in it, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But looking at our next game, number 9 Utah traveled on over to Washington to take on the Huskies. This one also did not disappoint. It was a very exciting game, and Utah needed a feverish comeback to win this one and ended up taking it 33-28.
Washington came out early and they got off to a big lead. And then, like you said, Utah had to kind of power their way back. One of their running backs, Zach Moss, I believe his name is. It's phenomenal running back. He's
phenomenal.
Definitely going to be playing on Sundays in the near future. But big comeback by Utah. They definitely needed that, especially when they're trying to play for a Pac-12 championship berth. You definitely needed this win. This was a big win on the road.
Absolutely was. Looking at our next game, this one I put on here because I thought it was going to be a very interesting matchup, and I thought a lot of respect wasn't given to UAB, who was traveling over to take on the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee at 3-5 and having a very, very down year, taking on the 6-1 UAB squad. But a lot of disrespect because Tennessee was favored by 13. But after the game was played, we found out why, as Tennessee took this one 30-7.
They were coming off a big win last week against South Carolina, also at home. So you got to imagine they want to keep that rolling. And if any of you don't remember, UAB actually suspended their football program for a while.
Yeah, for like 2 years.
So, they're probably just now getting back to having some of the talent that they had before. And I'm not sure.
They're still competitive since the time they've come back. It obviously was a slow process because anytime you have any kind of a death penalty levied on your program, whether it be self-inflicted or by the NCAA, it's really hard to come back from. Ask SMU. They've been groveling in mediocrity ever since theirs until this season. So to be able to see UAB even come out and be competitive is awesome. But I thought they would be a lot more competitive than this, especially with how bad the Volunteers have been. But that's why the games are played.
Exactly.
But
speaking of SMU.
Yeah, speaking of SMU, we had number 15 SMU traveling on over to take on Memphis, who's sporting their own 7-1, number 24 ranking. No one thought this game was going to be a marquee matchup of any kind, but this one ended up being a barn burner as Memphis ended up taking this one and knocking off SMU from their undefeated season 54-48, and it was a classic.
Yeah, this was a great game. I really enjoyed watching this game, and both teams were fighting for the West Division for the American Conference, and even through a monster game by Shane Buechele, didn't matter. They still were essentially trailing majority of the game. Taking this loss now, of course, SMU is no longer undefeated.
That's right.
Not only are they no longer undefeated, they are now third in the American West. There's 3 teams at the top: Navy, Memphis, and now SMU, all with 1 loss. All 3 of those teams all only have 1 loss on the year. Again, another thing
surprising.
You gotta, if you're one of those teams, you gotta wish that, man, we should be in the East Division with the Cincinnati, or UCF. But
UCF. Did you see that game at all in those new uniforms they brought out for that game?
I did not. I saw them when they had announced them on Twitter, and
you didn't miss much.
That's what I was thinking. They're very head scratching to me when I saw it.
Kind of wonky, honestly.
Yeah.
I get the idea. You want to celebrate the Kennedy Space Center and NASA and all that, but meh.
Yeah, I wasn't really,
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed.
Didn't really pop out to me in a good way.
But looking at our next game, Virginia traveled over to take on North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And this game, North Carolina coming off that huge 6 overtime game. I know they've left them kind of depleted. Wanted to play a nice, solid game against Virginia. You took North Carolina. I took Virginia, and Virginia took it 38-31.
Virginia needed this game badly in the ACC, and they did what they needed to do. They went on the road in a tough environment. North Carolina's been playing other teams really well at home, and Virginia did what they needed to do. They're still in line to make the ACC championship game and get destroyed. So,
oh yeah, it's just lining up, the firing squad. Basically, it's the ACC title game's not even going to be fair, but that's for another day. But looking at our next matchup, number 7 Oregon went on down to LA to take on the USC Trojans. And early on, this game looked to be very interesting through the first quarter with USC taking a 10-0 lead. But then Oregon said, hey, we know how to play football, and ended up smacking them in the mouth and taking this one 56-24.
Yeah, this game was really tight at halftime. I mean, it wasn't it was a couple score game, but on the field, you were watching this game, and you kind of had a feeling coming in that this might be like a trap game for Oregon, because
Absolutely.
USC, we've seen what they've done to a team like even Utah. They gave them their only loss on the year. They were doing an enshrinement ceremony at halftime for Matt Leinart, so you knew they were energized, and they've been playing well enough. Hey, you can't fault Keaton Slovis or the offense for what they did. It's that defense that couldn't stop that Oregon offense. Oregon is still now in position to make the playoff, because they are 7-1 with 1 loss. Utah is also in their division. Winner of that obviously is going to make the Pac-12 championship game, and that winning team has a very good chance of making it in the playoff.
But let's not forget the Pac-12 has been able to cannibalize itself before, especially in the title game. So the Oregon or Utah, depending on who it may be, is definitely going to have to try and avoid that as much as possible to try and give the Pac-12 their first berth in the playoffs. So definitely going to be interesting going forward. But looking at our next game, we have BYU traveling over to Utah State, take on the Aggies in this game. I definitely picked BYU. I'm so glad I picked BYU because they ended up thrashing Utah State 42-14.
This game is always throw the record books out the window whenever these two teams
Very
play.
much so.
And, with that fact being at home, Utah was favored by 3.5. Figured it would be a very close game. I took Utah State because BYU on the road has not been very good this year, albeit they've been traveling to the East Coast a lot. They've had, I think, 3 games this year on the East Coast, in Florida even.
Yep.
It's been a rough season for BYU, but they have that impressive freshman quarterback.
Oh, extremely
that
impressive.
He's been playing really well, albeit they're all having a 3-4 record. But they do win this game pretty big, and it's a good stepping stone for BYU going into the end of the season.
Yeah, most definitely. And you always want to try and position yourselves for the future because they played out of their mind. And like you said, their record really doesn't show it, but BYU hung into a lot of games this year against really good competition. So BYU is not a team you can always count out. They're always a dangerous team, but we'll definitely see where they get going forward, especially with a lot of this younger talent that they have going in for this later this season and the next season. I think BYU will be in a really good position. But looking at our last game, the late game didn't even kick off until almost midnight.
Actually, it was officially midnight.
Officially, yes, midnight. So Fresno State traveled out to the islands to take on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, and we both picked Hawaii in this one. Hawaii always plays great at home.
They always do.
Every single team, doesn't matter how good or bad you are, always has trouble traveling to the islands. But Fresno State bucked that trend and took this game 41-38.
Yeah, a big win on the road for Fresno State. They're still trying to climb back into the standings and in their conference, and it's really kind of a letdown game if you're Hawaii, because you have that 5-3 record and you have been playing well at home, and you kind of needed this win to keep yourself in the conversation. So
most
definitely a tough game to lose.
Yeah, definitely a tough one, especially with how well they've been playing. But Hawaii always finds a way to bounce back a little bit, so we'll see what they can do. But on the week, as a quick recap, I went 10-6, you went 7-9. That brings the overall totals. I'm 113-54. Ship it, cash that one out of the bank. But you're at 107-60, very respectable.
I'm not too far behind you. You're hitting. You right now. You're picking at a 67% clip. I got 64, which is still pretty good.
You know what's funny is I showed a friend of mine this, and He's like, that kind of clip you got going on here. He's like, please don't start betting. He's like, I don't want you to lose your money or anything or go crazy.
It's funny because there's been some weeks where we went like, what was it?
Like 13,
like 14 and 2 and 14-2, 13-3, and we're looking at each other like, man, we should be betting on these games.
We should.
But then we have weeks like this, or at least I do, and I'm like, man, it's a good thing I don't bet on these games.
Or like last week, even though we didn't have an episode, I went 8-8, you went 9-7. It's one of those weeks you're just like, yeah, probably a good idea.
Yeah, those are the nail biters that you're like, oh man, I just.
Yeah, we were hurting through that week. But we need to move on, though, because we have some game balls to give out. What do you got?
My first game ball I'm giving to Oklahoma State running back Chuba Hubbard. Like I said, he is the nation's leading rusher. They did beat TCU 37-24. Chuba Hubbard had 223 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Both of those touchdown runs were, forget this, 92 yards and 62 yards.
Man, he's just trying to take it to the house.
And TCU did a great job of bottling him up in the first half. He had, I think, maybe 30 yards rushing in the first half, only 7 carries. And third quarter, that guy, he is explosive. Mm-hmm. And you just know that at some point he's going to bust one out. And he did.
Man, that's amazing.
He got a couple. And gave the Oklahoma State the lead and ultimately the win.
Yeah, you got to get wins where you can. Chuba Hubbard is a guy you could definitely rely on for that. My first game ball goes to quarterback Mason Fine of North Texas. Who's that, you may ask? Oh, he's just a guy who threw 24 of 39 for 332 yards and 7 touchdowns. Who goes out and does that anymore? He beat UTEP 52-26 single-handedly.
Joe Burrow does that.
Maybe over 2 games, okay? Or if he's playing...
Joe Burrow threw 6 in one game.
Or if he's playing against the Florida School of the Blind or something, okay? Calm down. All right, so at the end of the day, though, Mason Fine went out there and just put a shellacking, 7 touchdowns. So amazing to see that. Oh, and just a tidbit, he felt so good about himself. He showed up to the after-game presser in a T-Rex outfit.
That's great. Yeah. You got to find that because we got to share that on our social media accounts.
We're going to.
Yeah, we got to share that. That's great. I got to see that. My next game ball is going to quarterback Stephen Calvert of Liberty. They took down UMass.
Wrong Liberty. Sorry.
Yeah, wrong Liberty. They took down UMass 63-21. Calvert went 20 of 27, 474 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. Big reason I want to point this out is now with this win, Liberty is 6-3 on the year, and it's their first ever year as a D1 program.
Man, and rarely do D1 programs that are new to D1 ever have a winning record in their first few years, let alone their first year.
Yeah, and the losses that they've had have been tough losses. The opening week at home against Syracuse.
Oh yeah.
Then the next week against UL, I believe it was UL Lafayette, and they lost against Rutgers this year. But they've beaten teams like New Mexico State, New Mexico, Buffalo in the MAC. They've got Virginia up on the schedule coming up next. So they've got some good competition in their first year as a D1.
Definitely. Watch out for Liberty. They could be a team playing some upset here soon. Who knows? My next game ball goes to none other than quarterback Ian Book of Notre Dame, who had to pull some crazy magic out of his rear end to make this happen. Ended up throwing for 336 yards, 2 touchdowns against 2 picks, and they were some ugly picks. But he also had 50 yards rushing, including the game-winning touchdown with 29 seconds left in the game to give Notre Dame the lead and the win.
My last game ball goes to quarterback Bryce Perkins of Virginia. The Cavaliers, they beat UNC 38-31 on the road. This guy was a one-man show. He was a one-man show for this game. He went 30 of 39 passing, 378 yards. He was throwing at a 9, almost 10 yards per pass average.
That's insane.
3 touchdowns, and on the ground, 24 carries, 112 yards, 2 scores as a runner.
Wow.
He accounted for 5 touchdowns himself.
That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. But you want to talk about accounting for some touchdowns. How about that Boston College rushing attack? Who gets my next game ball as they beat Syracuse 58-27. Quarterback played great and threw 3 touchdowns. Let me get my English right. But the rushing attack was absolutely amazing. A.J. Dillon had 35 rushes for 232 yards and 3 touchdowns. Looking amazing out there. But, when he got tired and they had to bring him over to the sideline and sit him down for a minute, put in the backup David Bailey, who, had 16 rushes for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns himself. So, absolute amazing rushing attack that absolutely demoralized the Syracuse defense and given Boston College the win. Man.
And there were a lot of other games. I mean, we were trying to keep this, not a lengthy part of the segment. So I mean,
we carry on sometimes as it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple other people of note that obviously there's plenty of great games. We pick our best three.
That's right. But moving on, though, we had some big NCAA news this week. If you don't know by now, the California Fair Pay to Play Act ended up being passed and ratified not too long ago. However, a lot of people have been waiting for the NCAA's response to see how is this going to affect college athletics as a whole, especially with the ruling body. However, the NCAA decided to come out and decided that they were going to have a vote that unanimously was passed to have all three divisions propose policy changes that would allow student athletes to benefit from the use of their name, their image, and their likeness in a, quote, manner that is consistent with the collegiate model, end quote. And all this was announced this past Tuesday.
This is way long overdue, but if any of the states, of course, other states have jumped on. There's, I think, 6 or 7 states that are also looking for their own legislation. But had none of this come to play in California, we would not be talking about this because the NCAA is not proactive about anything.
No, they're not. And if they can keep things status quo, they will.
That's what they're all about. Mm-hmm. And the best part that I like to point out about this, which is why I love to crap all over this story, is what you said in their quote. It is in a manner that consistent with the collegiate model. That is their asterisk on this whole deal. That's their out that can say, oh, nope, you're still ineligible because it's not conducive with the collegiate model.
And what's funny is that a lot of different board regions and chairs and athletic directors and all this are coming out and really blasting that quote right there that you just mentioned in a manner consistent with the collegiate model, which really tells me they're going to try and find a way to screw this all over because the NCAA is good at that, especially if it puts things into their favor.
Absolutely. And like I've said, year in and year out for the past, 5 years or so, nothing is absolutely going to change until all the Power 5 conferences give a big middle finger to the NCAA and say, we're doing our own thing. You go fend for yourself. And then they implement things like this.
Right.
And it's probably going to be schools in states that have already passed this Fair Pay to Play Act when that time comes.
Right. Which at this point,
I think that's the only way it's going to change.
Yeah, and it's sad that it's getting to this point that fans or hands are having to be forced at this point. Board Chair and Ohio State President Michael Draco said in a statement that, quote, we must embrace change to provide the best possible experience for college athletes. Additional flexibility in this area can and must continue to support college sports as a part of higher education, which is perfectly fine and well. But at the end of the day, we now live in a society where you can make millions of dollars just getting what they call YouTube famous. You can go and be able to start a business venture without any kind of proper schooling like you did back in the old days. It's such a different time now that being able to find success and find something that works and find something that is followable and will be able to get the attention you want is not quite as hard as it used to be back in the day when everything was a lot more compartmentalized, a lot more of a streamlined and strict approach. And now it's more of a, all over the place, a fair game, if you could say. And
a lot of what it is, though, it's also that even take us for example.
Right.
Anybody and their mother can do a podcast nowadays.
Yes, they can.
Anybody can do a podcast. There's 700,000 of them. But
absolutely.
The one thing that helps make the best of the best is you have to elevate your game or be really good at what you do in order to be successful and make money and do whatever, do whatever it is that you want to do with your venture. I think this is the same thing because up until then, it was only the teams that were on national TV. And now it's all of a sudden you got the social media. How many times do we see colleges that they announce their recruit signings on like Instagram and Facebook Live and Twitter?
Try to make a big thing out of it.
Yeah, and they might try to make a big spectacle out of it. And now I think, especially with outside forces, and I'm talking like this is really going to be some things like Zion with Duke.
Yes. College
basketball players that could leave for the NBA right away out of high school, but because the rules in place, they have to play. Football's a little different. A lot of the money that these programs make are from donors and boosters.
Yep.
None of that goes to the players. None of it's going to go to the players. So I don't know what your argument is there. It's the other stuff. It's the team. It's the people like, say, for instance, if this goes through and now all of a sudden somebody like Tua can now get a Nike sponsorship, or which is now you're going to run into, well, our school is an Under Armour school and you're getting, no, we can't let you have a Nike. You got to go. This is opened a can of worms for college football.
Well, keep in mind that the can of worms sitting next to that can of worms is the NCAA transfer portal, because we've already seen it get, I feel like, used and abused a lot this year, that if you don't like the situation you're in, or you feel like things aren't going the way you want to this season, oh, well, I can just redshirt, save this year of eligibility, and now I can go hit the transfer portal and go wherever I want.
To an extent, because you have to have a valid excuse to be able to forego that year that you have to lose. And you better have damn good lawyers.
Well, now all you have to do, and this is something I'm seeing particularly with the University of Houston, is that they're just flat out redshirting later in the season to save the eligibility to build towards the future. And it's something that their athletic director and head coach were talking about, was now you don't see younger and younger guys getting redshirted to save that eligibility when they're able to be a big-time contributor to a team anymore. Now you see it where, okay, we're going to test you out as a young freshman and as a sophomore, see what you got. And if we feel like it's something good, we'll just go ahead and redshirt you, especially if we know if it's a lost season or we're not going to make the playoff, and save you for the future and build towards the future.
Well, it's like their starting quarterback, and within the first couple weeks, they weren't winning games, and they have 4 weeks that they can play and still redshirt, and they basically decided, the QB and the head coach decided that, yeah, we're going to redshirt, and I'm just going to wait till next year now.
And that's now also what they're doing with their running back, Carr. He actually played in this past week's game, but as long as he redshirts after this week, he still saves his eligibility. And now we'll be able to build towards the future. And at any point, though, a player can still decide that if he's not in a good situation, he can still hit the transfer portal. There's really not as many limitations as there used to be with, say, the old way of transferring to another school. Now, having your eligibility affected, that still will be affected regardless, depending
unless
upon
your name is Justin Fields.
Well, that's a whole nother bag of worms that we're not going to open.
We live in a world where guys like that. Not him in particular, but there's been a number of other players in college football that have used and abused this so far. You have players like that are allowed, and NCAA is like, oh, you're going to a powerhouse school that might make the playoff this year? All right, we're going to grant you your eligibility. Go ahead, play immediately. But then you've got other kids. Remember, we talked about this on the show a few weeks ago, that there was a player that was, I think it was Coastal Carolina, trying to go home to Virginia Tech or Virginia.
Yeah,
a lineman. And because his mother was sick and she was dying, she had cancer.
Which by NCAA bylaws qualifies for a waiver for transfer.
Right. And that he wanted to go and be closer to her and still play. And they said, nope, she's improving. You can't have this.
That's ridiculous.
I can't wait for the day that the NCAA is completely crumbled and destroyed for this kind of a reason.
We're dancing on its ashes.
I mean, I will.
I will too, and then I'll take a nice big old. Anyways,
and then a couple of years later, we're gonna be like, man, we really wish we would have had that NCAA back.
Yeah, right. But either way, though, it's monumentous to see this happening, because the biggest thing too, and what I've been seeing from opponents of this, is they're using the argument that, oh, well, not only does this destroy the amateurism that is college athletics, but now these schools are going to have to pay for this. Schools don't have to pay for anything.
Nope.
And that's the thing they don't realize. This takes everything outside of the collegiate model. This is all from outside sources. Nothing goes through the school. Nothing goes through the NCAA. I can go now as a athlete to, say, for our sake of argument, Notre Dame, and I can go get me a nice little Under Armour contract outside of it and get paid by them and do advertisements for them. That has nothing to do with the school.
Right.
Nothing to do with the NCAA. And that's what it's allowing these people to do. Like the great case to look at is UCF punter and kicker who had his own YouTube channel that he was monetizing and making money off of. And the NCAA just slapped him and was like, listen, you can't make money like this. You're making money off your name, image, and likeness. You can't do this. This is against NCAA bylaws. So either you can keep your YouTube page or you can play football. One or the other. You know what he said? He said, forget you, NCAA. I'll keep my YouTube page.
Smart guy.
He is, and he's making money. So, but now, under these bylaws, you can do this legally. Without issue, without repercussions.
Supposedly.
As long as it stays within the collegiate model.
Yeah, I still call bullshit on this by the NCAA. I don't think they're going to find ways to still make people ineligible. But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, say for instance, you see now all the donors and boosters donating all this money for the upgrades of all this kind of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they're now endorsing these athletes. You know what I mean? As long as it's endorsements and it falls under the rules, it can start happening.
You do make a valid point, especially if you could just have a dummy shell company and be like, oh, no, my company sponsors this guy.
Yep.
Ooh, man, you opened a whole bag of worms right there, and that's something we'll have to.
That's that's what these guys think about. That's what some of these boosters think about.
You have to, because if you can funnel the money to these players to get them to play for your school, you're going to.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've seen it happen already.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see how it all works out. But no matter how it works out, the 3 NCAA divisions are now tasked with making these changes to their bylaws no later than January of 2021. So that gives them a little bit over a year to get something out there and changed in the bylaws, which also supplements California's act by 2 years. So, NCAA trying to get ahead of the game, it seems like here, but
I already know what's going to happen.
Oh man,
they're gonna get to January 2021 or December of 2020, and they're gonna say, you know what, we got to push this back. We didn't have enough time. We didn't find a way that was suitable for the athletes and the schools, and that's exactly what they're gonna do. They're gonna push it back, or they're gonna make an excuse why they can't go forward with it.
But do we see the federal government get involved and try and bring out their own legislation? Because we also have to remember that there's a former Ohio State player who's now a state representative for the state of Ohio who's trying to introduce his own federal legislation to try and have a federal Fair Pay to Play Act.
If that passes before this kind of stuff comes through, then yeah, they'll have no choice. But there's gonna have to be a Supreme Court ruling on this at some point.
I think you're absolutely right.
And it's going to be probably 2021, 2022. That's probably going to be a Supreme Court ruling, and they'll judge one way or the other.
And it'll change the whole landscape of college athletics.
Yep. So give yourself about 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah. And
kids that are in like 9th grade right now, you guys are going to benefit.
Oh yeah,
big
greatly.
Time.
And hopefully through all that, you'll also still have Final Score, and we can report it come then. So just make sure to support us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at PCN Final Score. But I tell you what, it's been absolutely crazy when it comes to college athletics. But you know what else has been crazy? NFL football, because it's been a wild ride these past couple weeks, including the trade deadline, a couple surprises when it comes to some claimings off of waivers, our picks, because last week we actually both did quite dominant, even though we didn't have an episode. And Thursday night football, let's not forget about that. Yeah,
even Thursday night football, of course, you had some major trades at the trade deadline. Of course, Arizona picks up Kenyon Drake from Miami.
Huge pickup.
Yeah, Miami still, doing their best tank job they can. San Francisco gets Emmanuel Sanders from Denver, and they made that trade early enough so that both players could play in this Thursday night game. And both players played amazingly well. Kenyon Drake had 110 yards on only 15 carries. He averaged over 7 yards a carry and a touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders on the other side, 7 catches, 112 yards and a touchdown. This turned out to be a really good game. I mean, San Francisco was dominant early.
Yeah, they were up 21-7 at half.
21-7 at half, and then Arizona just came storming right back in the fourth quarter. 11 of their points were in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but it wasn't quite enough, as the 49ers ended up taking this one to stay perfect on the year, 28-25. But I think the Cardinals have a team that I know we looked kind of down on the Cardinals a lot early on because new quarterback, new system, air raid offense now being introduced into the NFL. Really not a whole lot to say on defense because of the suspensions and whatnot. But the Cardinals got a team, man. They are going to be able to compete. I'm really interested to see how this team's going to become next year.
They have a lot of positives to look forward to, and I mean say what you will about Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray is playing pretty well now. He's had a couple weeks where he's been a little shaky early on, and I think they finally settled down and realized that okay, let's make some things easier on him. And maybe going out and getting a Kenyon Drake helped. They have a very depleted running back room right now.
Oh, very depleted.
But the big question was, okay, well, why is Arizona trading for a running back like this when they've already got David Johnson and they've got a couple other guys in their room that they really like, and they're not even anywhere close to competing for the division or the playoffs.
Oh, definitely not.
It's a rental for 8 weeks. Why? But
everybody has a reasoning.
Everybody has a reasoning, is right.
But the big thing that I look at is that the Cardinals, of course, I'm going to pull out my ESPN random facts right now, is that through weeks 1 and 4, they had a weird split where they were only rushing it about 30% of the time, passing roughly about 70%. Since they got away and got their first win, now they're on almost a 50-50 split and are starting to get this offense humming. And now with Kenyon Drake being introduced into this Cardinals lineup, this offense could honestly be truly dangerous, especially when you have a fast, quick running back like Kenyon Drake with a guy like Kyler Murray in an air raid offense. You can see a lot of magic happening here, but I wonder if this is a sign that maybe they're going to try and move on from David Johnson.
I think they will at some point. I mean, he hasn't been playing particularly well this year. I know he's got a couple of years left on his contract, I believe, right?
I believe it's 1 or 2, yeah.
1 or 2. But that was one of the surprises. I thought they were going to try to turn right around and trade David Johnson at the trade deadline since they got Kenyon Drake.
That's what I thought.
But the bigger story here is the 49ers. They're 8-0.
They're 8-0 for the first time in over 20 years.
Yeah, they're 8-0. Jimmy Garoppolo had a huge game. 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. He only took 1 sack in the game.
Only 1.
The rushing attack had 100 yards, mostly led by Matt Breida.
Yep, he was on his comeback because he's honestly been hampered with a couple injuries here and there. So to see him come back in the lineup and kind of offset Tevin Coleman was honestly a great sight to see. Of course, not for my fantasy, though, but...
But this defense getting 3 sacks. They had a couple of passes defended. They didn't get any turnovers to speak of, but... I mean, they're one of the best defenses in the league. I don't care. You can talk about the Patriots all you want, but when you play against offenses that are ranked 20 or worse in the NFL every single week, of course your defense is going to look really good.
Oh, absolutely.
I think 49ers have hands down the best defense in the league right now.
Well, another thing, too, the 49ers are dealing with is that Quan Alexander now has a torn pectoral and is out for the season. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, that this defense did take a hit through this game. So going forward, that's something I feel teams are really going to attack is that linebacking core. But either way, the 49ers have been able to find ways to win, and I think they're going to continue to do so all the way to a division title. But looking at some other news around the NFL, of course, we mentioned Miami running back Kenyon Drake being traded to Arizona. Pats defensive end Michael Bennett got traded to Dallas.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting move as well. Really surprising since the Pats went out and got Michael Bennett in the offseason. I don't know, maybe sour grapes there or not really sure.
Could be. But this is Michael Bennett we're talking about. And Michael Bennett doesn't always rub people the right way. So, any number of things could have happened. But it seems like Michael Bennett probably will fit into that Dallas mentality pretty well.
And, fun fact, Michael Bennett, when he got traded to Dallas, you know how he's been kneeling every week for his for the Colin Kaepernick thing that was going on. He's still been doing that. He's still been kneeling every week. As soon as he got traded to Dallas and they talked to them, he said he's no longer going to do it. I mean, maybe it's because Jerry Jones came out and said right away, if you kneel on my team, you're gone.
Yeah, and maybe you don't get a job in the NFC East.
Yeah, maybe because he knows that, like, hey, I could actually not be working in the NFL right now. Maybe I should listen to what he says. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm just saying it's a fun fact.
It is a fun fact. But a more funner fact is that the Seattle Seahawks got them.
More funner?
More funner.
Where'd you go to school?
In good old D-land.
In Florida. Yeah, okay.
In Florida.
Anyway, so yeah, you were saying Josh Gordon's claimed off waivers by the Seattle Seahawks.
Huge move.
This is a big move because they had the Patriots had placed Josh Gordon on the IR and didn't really know what was going to happen with him.
Yep.
So then they release him. He comes off the IR, goes to Seattle. Now, Seattle was at number 28 in the waiver that nobody else put a claim in for Josh Gordon.
Which I find very surprising.
I do too.
Honestly. But there was an interesting little tidbit you came across earlier today that we talked about before the show.
Yeah, sources from ESPN say that Antonio Brown was looked at before they put in a claim for Josh Gordon.
Oh, my goodness.
The Seattle Seahawks were looking at Antonio Brown.
And then they said, oh, wait, we don't want to deal with that whole case of insanity. So let's go with this guy who's really, really fast.
I don't know, but that's what they... I don't know why anyone would want to touch Antonio Brown right now.
I wouldn't. Or not even with a 40-foot pole.
Or even at all anymore.
Right. But on another side of things, and this one not quite as happy, but does kind of reinforce the idea that I think this guy sucks. Broncos quarterback Joe Flacco was placed on IR and is now out for the season after scans show that he has bulging discs. So definitely not the greatest way you want to end the season, but definitely kind of saw this coming after he was already suffered the injury. They thought he was going to be out for a bit. And now this definitely had to put him on IR. Way to go, Joe Flacco.
I think what's more telling is how he came out and threw his coaching staff under the bus.
Completely
under the bus after that game. And now all of a sudden he's on IR for the year. I don't think it's just the injury.
Yeah, I have a feeling Joe Flacco might not last going into next season with the Broncos.
And at his age and John Elway still trying to find a quarterback to take over for Peyton Manning. I think I saw from I think it was the Pick Six podcast for CBS.
Mm-hmm.
They listed all the quarterbacks that Elway has had since Peyton Manning retired, and I think it's like he's now on his 9th quarterback.
Oh, geez.
I want to say it's like his 9th quarterback. And I mean, don't forget, you still got Drew Lock that you drafted in the 2nd round.
Who's still injured right now.
Still injured right now, but he's essentially going to be your guy moving forward.
I mean, you better hope he's just able to come out and do what he was touted to do. The big thing, though, that I see when it comes to the Broncos is now you're going to be turning to your 3rd-string quarterback, who I can't even remember his name at this point.
Brandon Allen.
Brandon Allen, there it is, who is a D2 prospect, if I'm not mistaken, was out of Delaware, and still holds the passing records, I think, for Delaware and for a lot of Division II, if I'm not mistaken. The guy can throw, but it's a lot different when you step into the NFL and now have to produce, especially when a guy goes down with injury.
Brandon Allen played at Arkansas.
Arkansas, really?
Yep.
God, who am I thinking of then?
You were thinking of Joe Flacco.
No, there's another guy.
You're thinking of Joe
recent than
Flacco.
that. But either way, though, the guy, he went to Arkansas. Ugh, that's just as bad.
Yeah.
Honestly. So
Played
I
for
have no
Brett Bielema.
faith. I have no faith at all in what the Broncos are going to be able to do this season, even with him or Drew Lock. The Broncos are in shambles at this point. The running game's also been suffering. So you just traded away also probably your best receiver, and
well, I mean, no, they're really high on Cortland Sutton,
and he's
been playing really well.
Right.
He's younger. I get it. You want to try to kind of changing of the guard thing, but your running game doesn't get helped if you have a terrible quarterback running your offense.
Very true.
I mean, just take a look at the Jaguars, for instance. You had Bortles running the show, and then their offense suffered when they didn't have a very strict game plan around him. Mm-hmm. And now this year you got a guy like Gardner Minshew, and even Foles for a little bit in week 1. Running game looks a lot better because you actually have a quarterback that can make throws.
Exactly. And speaking of games and throws and all that great stuff, we got to get to our NFL Weekly Pick'em. A lot of great games going on. Of course, we mentioned the Thursday night game. Right now, though, we have the Texans playing the Jaguars over in London. That game kicked off back at 9:30. It was truly a very close matchup in going into halftime, but at this point,
Texans are up 19-3.
But Jacksonville does have the ball in Houston territory, so a lot of things could happen. About 11 minutes left in that game overall, so we'll definitely be able to see what happens as it goes. Both of us picked the Jaguars, so hopefully they can get a comeback going.
Again, another game that I was like picking the Texans, and nope. I decided to go against my gut.
Yeah, I went to type Texans, and it somehow came out Jaguars, so I don't know what happened there. Don't know what happened there, but
it's okay. I'm supporting the Minshew today.
Yeah, you're supporting the Minshew.
Supporting the Minshew mustache.
Yeah, while you're doing that, while I'm covered in crap. Either way, though, we have a lot of the great 1 o'clock games.
Dressed like a winner.
Coming up. When they get back to real relevance and knock off Ohio State, I'll start calling them a winner. The Vikings.
That's fair. That's really fair.
The Vikings are going to be traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs at 5-3. The Vikings 6-2. Vikings really coming back after having duds to start the season. Vikings are favored by 1. I got the Chiefs in this one. Who do you have?
I'm taking the Vikings. Woo! 2 reasons, and it's going to be short and sweet. No Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs defense.
Hey, Matt Moore knows how to play football.
Chad Henne starting.
Oh, well, that takes it another step back.
There you go.
Well, now I need to reevaluate my pick.
It's too late. You've already said it on. You already said it on air.
You know what? I'm going to stick by it. Go with the Andy Reid. He can make it happen.
The Vikings have the best rushing attack in the NFL, and the Chiefs are terrible against the run.
Yeah, they are.
This was a pretty easy pick for me. But, it is Andy Reid and their offense, and they're very explosive still. I don't know. I'm just taking Vikings. I think they're gonna take it pretty easily.
Well, Matt Moore still is going to be available for this game as well. Chad Henne is getting the start. But just an interesting fact: the last time they were teammates was for the Miami Dolphins in 2011, and that year they went 6-10. So this doesn't look too good.
It's better than what the Dolphins are right now.
Yeah, who are just straight Miami tanking. All right, but looking at our next game, we have the Jets. Funny enough, traveling to Miami to take on the the Miami Dolphins. The Jets are favored by 3, only have 1 win on the season against the Dallas Cowboys. So definitely going to be an interesting game. Both of us have the Jets. Do you think the Dolphins have a shot in this?
A lot of experts are picking this as like the game that the Dolphins could actually win. But here's a big thing about this game. Xavier Howard is out. Their top corner for Miami is out. And of course, they've been trading everybody away. The Jets really need to turn things around. Sam Darnold, this is now, I said it before on the last episode we had 2 weeks ago, and I blew your mind.
Yeah,
this is the beginning of Sam Darnold's run. If you do not have Sam Darnold for fantasy football, you should have already picked him up, or you're going to be SOL for the next 7 weeks. I'm sorry, 5 weeks now.
Oh,
this game, the stretch of games that he has coming up is against very weak defenses. And I'm taking the Jets, and I'm taking the Jets to go on a little bit of a run.
Oh, man. I got the Jets winning this, but I don't know about going on a run or anything. But, the Dolphins have a keep to leave. Oh, yeah, on IR. Never mind. Either way, though.
Hey, but they're gonna end up buying out his contract.
Yeah.
So that way he's done. Don't have to worry about it. And they got a 5th-round pick out of it.
Yeah, buddy.
Just goes to show you, if you are any team in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins will be willing to work with you as long as you give them at least a draft pick.
You give them a draft pick, they're going to listen.
Oh, yeah.
So looking at our next game, we have the Washington Redskins with their singular win, also against the Miami Tanks. They're going to be traveling up to Buffalo to take on the surprising Bills, who are now 5-2. Bills are favored by 9.5. Who do you got?
This offense is so bad. I mean, well, you can pick either team to say that.
I was about to say.
But the offense is not good right now. But I'm taking the Bills, but I think the Redskins cover. This is not a 9.5 point game. Like, this is going to be an ugly game because both defenses are okay, but both offenses are not great either. I think Dwayne Haskins is finally getting his first NFL start. He's played okay in the time he's seen, but I think he's going to give them a little bit of a spark, and it's going to be a really low-scoring game. I'm talking like 17-13 type game. This is going to be a really low-scoring game. I'm taking the Bills, but I take the Redskins to cover.
I don't know about all that. I honestly think that the Bills not only win, but I think they'll cover as well, because Dwayne Haskins has been horrific on the season, just on the season. He's only played in 2 games. He's 12 of 22 for 140 yards and 4 picks. He's been sacked 4 times, no touchdowns. Now, I'm not saying Dwayne Haskins couldn't come in and maybe make some kind of magic happen, but the Bills' defense is way too good for Dwayne Haskins, I feel, to find consistent success. Now, will he have one where he might just be able to get a nice, good, big play on him? Sure, that happens every now and then, even against good defenses. But I don't feel confident enough with Dwayne Haskins to say that he's going to be able to come out here and be able to not only play well, but win this game. I got the Bills taking this one by at least 13 points. At least.
I mean, I could see that just because of the Bills' defense, but I mean, if you're looking at
and it's
offensive
going to be the Bills'
numbers,
defense that's going to score touchdowns, just so we know.
Yeah, I'd say if you're looking at offensive numbers, the Bills are in the bottom half of the league right now.
Yeah, and their running game with their tandem with Devin Singletary and with Frank Gore isn't horrible, but it's also been extremely inconsistent, especially when Devin Singletary went down with his injury and Frank Gore was getting the majority of the snaps. But with Kyle Allen back there, he's been inconsistent just as bad. So this whole offense, it seems like week to week, even from series to series, is just massively inconsistent. When they play well, but when they play bad, ooh, buddy, it is bad. But still, I think the Bills are going to be able to gut this one out against the Redskins, who are having all kinds of turmoil on the field, off the field. It's just bad with that organization right now. But looking at our next game,
Colts 5-2 at the 3-4 Steelers. The Colts are favored by 1 point on the road. You've got the Colts in this game.
I do. I think Jacoby Brissett will be able to come out and be able to throw the ball well, even without T.Y. Hilton in the lineup, which he is out injured for this game. He has plenty of other playmakers that are young, fast, and able to step in and make some noise, and I think the Colts are going to be able to roll this one.
This is my upset of the week. Second upset of the week. This is like number 2 on my list. This is one of my 2 upsets that I've got for the week just because The Steelers have been playing a lot better with Mason Rudolph in the game. They're a couple of bad bounces away from actually being a over 500 team.
Right.
The Colts, they're depleted in their secondary. They do have a solid run game, but the Steelers have a solid run defense. I think this is going to be a really close game. I do have the Steelers taking the upset, and it's going to be plus it's at home. Is it like traveling on the road in the NFL is difficult. Only the really elite teams can travel on the road and dominate and play well. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna take the advantage that Mason Rudolph, Juju Smith-Schuster get back on the same page. James Conner is having a hell of a year. I'm taking the Steelers at home in an upset.
Ooh, that's a ballsy pick there, sir. But in our next game, we have the Tennessee Titans traveling over to play the Carolina Panthers at Bank of America Stadium, and Panthers still without Cam Newton. Cam Newton's still dealing with that foot injury.
Oh, well, who cares? Bye. See you later.
Yes, I think he's going to be gone come the end of the season. Personal viewpoint. Either way, though, I think the Titans are going to take this one because I think Ryan Tannehill, who's been playing honestly pretty good for the Titans, is going to come out and have a really big game against this weak defense.
If you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you know that this narrative is about to change because Ryan Tannehill is destined for a letdown game. There's no way he can play this well for this long. I think
he does it.
I think this is the game that he does not play well. It's on the road. Panthers are favored by 4, but the big reason why Titans have a good defense, but you got Christian McCaffrey on that other side. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey on the other side is going to be a big X factor. The Titans defense is decent, but I'm taking the Panthers. I think Christian McCaffrey has another big game, and I think Kyle Allen also elevates this offense. Panthers win.
Oh, just like they're supposed to have a good game against the 49ers and then got blown out 51-13.
Yeah, and you're coming off that embarrassment. You have to right the ship.
I agree. You have to, but it's not going to be righted today because the Titans are going to take this one.
All right.
But looking at our next matchup, one that I hold near and dear to my heart, as the Chicago Bears travel on over to Lincoln Financial Field to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles sitting 4-4, Bears 3-4. The Bears have come out and said they are not looking for revenge for last year's dink-doink play that happened in the playoffs.
Look at revenge. Look at revenge for the goalpost, not against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, exactly. Tear down your goalpost, okay? Don't tear down the Eagles because the Eagles are going to come out here and they're going to shred it. Favored by 5, I think they win and cover.
Oh my God!
Absolutely.
I think, you're
between Miles Sanders and the great play they've gotten from him.
You're getting crazier every week.
Howard, who's been playing lights out for the past few weeks.
How'd that work against your prediction with the Cowboys?
And we get Deshaun Jackson back, so that's also going to be a huge boon for this offense. I think the Eagles can absolutely get it. They'll still be without Jason Peters and they'll still be without Nigel Bradham, but they can still get this done.
Here's the big matchup of the game. It's who can be worse, the Bears offense or the Eagles pass defense.
Okay, well, we're talking
who's going to be worse.
We're talking about Mitchell Trubisky here,
which is why I'm going with the Eagles to be slightly less terrible. I'm going with the Eagles defense to be slightly less terrible.
They get quarterback and Vontae Maddox back for this game as well. Which is their huge rookie that they're going to have.
I'll give you this.
All the secondary help that they need.
Your Eagles on defense are going to get a couple of turnovers and they're going to win. I think it'll be a surprisingly close game, and by close I mean it's not going to be like Eagles win by like 17 points. They'll win by like 10 because the Bears defense is still good.
They are good.
And your boy Wentz struggles. He's struggling this year. When are you going to get it through your head that he's not better?
He's the Messiah
than Dak Prescott.
He's a Messiah. Be quiet.
When are you going to get it through your head? He's not better than Dak Prescott.
He's a saint.
He's a saint. But I'm taking the Eagles. I think they're going to win at home against the Bears. They're going to finally get over 500, and they're still in the hunt for the NFC East.
God, my skin's burning right now, I swear, and it's not just because of what you said about the Eagles. Anyways, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling out to take on the 12th man in the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks 6-2, favored by 6 in this game. The Buccaneers 2-5, and have been extremely inconsistent, especially with Jameis Winston under center. We both got the Seahawks in this one, but does Jameis maybe have a little magic? Might be able to make this one close?
Watch out if you're the Seattle Seahawks. Their defense, their pass defense has been so atrocious this year. Mm-hmm. This is one of those games that is set up for Jameis Winston to be like, hey, I'm going to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I would not be surprised if the Buccaneers win this game on the road. But I'm taking the Seahawks. They're going to They're going to win a very close game, and I think the Buccaneers cover. But I think Jameis Winston is in line to have a big game because this is one of those games where it's like, oh, it's the 2-6 Bucks. Seattle's favored by 6. This is going to be a blowout. And
perfect trap game.
And Tampa Bay, we've seen it all year. Whenever we make our picks, whenever we don't pick the Bucks, they win. Whenever we do pick the Bucks, they lose or lose big.
This is very true. It's been very, very true.
They make fools out of us
every time. Damn it, Tampa Bay. All right, looking at our next game. I know this one holds a little bit near and dear to you. 4:05 game. The Lions at 3-3-1 traveling out to Oakland to take on the Raiders, who are favored by 2 in this matchup. I really wanted to pick the Lions in this one. I really, really did. But I couldn't do it because the Oakland Raiders are going to take this one on the back of Josh Jacobs as he has himself a nice little game against that Lions defense, and they're going to take this one. However, it's going to be real close. Very iffy if they actually cover. This could be a 1-point game. And
that's the key. If you're the Detroit Lions, you got to stop Josh Jacobs. And that was one of the big reasons why I was torn on this game as well. It is traveling out to the West Coast. You've got, you had daylight savings time as well. You're losing a lot of sleep if you're coming from the East Coast. And I think the Lions squeak this game out. But it's going to be a tough game all the way through. The Raiders have been playing surprisingly really well this year.
They really have.
And it's been on the back of Josh Jacobs, really.
Yeah, because it hasn't been Derek Carr.
And their tight end Darren Waller, who's been great for my fantasy team. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Continue to watch us on Final Score if you want.
But I'm going to take the Lions in this game. It's going to be a tough game. It'll be a close game. But yeah, if they can stop the run, I think they can force enough mistakes out of Derek Carr to take it.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a shot there. Looking at our next game, 4:25 game, as the Cleveland Browns travel out to Denver to take on the Broncos at Mile High. Both teams only 2 wins on the season. The Broncos are going to be down Joe Flacco for this. So the Browns right now are favored by 3. Both of us have the Browns. What kind of game do you think we're going to get?
Ugly game. Super ugly game. The way the Browns have been playing this year, they have not looked good. But now that they're away from the gauntlet part of their schedule, they can finally play against, quote, easier teams. And I think they win this game. It's going to be very tough. I think it'll be Broncos are +3. Right. I think the Broncos cover, but I think it'll be like a 1, 2, 3 point game.
Yeah, I think it'll be definitely a slugfest, but I think the Browns will be able to cover just because I feel they have the superior talent. Just because I feel with how the Broncos offense is going to look, they're going to have that defense on the field a lot more because the Broncos aren't going to be able to get the ball moving at all. So you're just going to see a lot of the Broncos defense just getting tired out throughout this game, getting worn down by Nick Chubb, getting worn out by Baker Mayfield in the passing attack. So I feel that this will just be an ugly, grounded out game, and then the Browns will slowly start to pull away near the end. But it's going to be interesting overall. I know Baker Mayfield and company are definitely wanting to bounce back.
Absolutely. If they can run the football, that's going to be the key. If they can run the football with Nick Chubb, I think they'll be able to control the clock and they'll be able to take this game.
But then our next game, another 4:25 game, as the Green Bay Packers travel out to LA to take on the Chargers. Chargers are 3-5, very dismal this season, and just fired their offensive coordinator. Packers coming in 7-1 are favored by 3.5 in this. Who do you have?
I'm taking the Packers, but I was hesitant because the Chargers. The Chargers have been in a lot of the games, whether they win or lose. They've been in every single game this year, and being at home, it's gonna be tough. Again, another East Coast team traveling to the West Coast. I think it'll be a very, very close game. But I ultimately am going to take the Packers. They've been just playing too well this year. And it helps when you've got, the referees on your side too. It kind of helps.
You got to have someone on payroll. Maybe they're learning something from the other P team, the Patriots. But the other thing I look at is the Packers might be getting Devontae Adams back. I know he's been kind of trying to battle back in the lineup ever since he suffered the turf toe against the loss to the Eagles on Thursday Night Football. So definitely could see him in the lineup. But either way, Aaron Rodgers has been playing out of his mind, being able to find his guys where he needs to. But defense has been stepping up big time for them now.
With a depleted receiver core, too.
With a depleted receiver core.
Really good.
Geronimo Allison has been looking great for them, too. That's another one you got to keep an eye on. But I definitely think the Packers will take this and then more than definitely cover. I think they end up winning this one by about 10 or 13.
Okay.
But for our next game, and this is the
Sunday night game.
Yeah, the Sunday night game. This is the matchup of the week, I believe. The Patriots, undefeated, traveling up to Baltimore to take on the 5-2 Ravens, who have looked dynamite this year with Lamar Jackson under center, and of course with Marquise Brown coming in. Marquise Brown, though, is slated, as far as last I heard, is not going to be in this game. However, the Ravens are still a very formidable offense, and of course, you can never count out that defense, who are also plus Marcus Peters for this matchup, who had a pick 6 in his first game in a Ravens uniform. So this game is going to be extremely interesting all the way throughout. Who do you got in this one?
This is my upset of the week.
Oh, here we go.
Ravens plus 3.5 at home. The Patriots finally are going to go up against a decent offense. Finally, they're going to meet a good offense. And with that, the Ravens can control the clock on the ground. Lamar Jackson is a freak of nature at the quarterback position, and good luck trying to contain him. But if anyone can do it, it'll be the Patriots. But I'm going to take this. This is going to be a very close game. This is going to be it's not necessarily going to be a slugfest, but it's going to be something. It's going to be something along that lines. It's going to be a very close game, very tough game. I don't see this game getting out of like the low 20s, and this is going to be the Ravens at home upsetting and giving the Patriots their first loss of the year.
Woo, that's a tall order, because the big thing I see here is that the Patriots defense is on a historic run right now and only allowing 7.5 points a game.
Again, who have they played?
Against weaker offenses.
You played the Jets twice, the Dolphins, and name your pick. There's a number of other teams they played. With it, Redskins, I think, too. The Bills, who have a terrible offense. All these teams are in the bottom 10 of the NFL in offense.
And they dominated, and that's what you need to do in those types of situations. The big thing I look at, though...
Congratulations, you did your job.
This will be the best offense they have seen yet. I absolutely agree. However, New England, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. That's all we need to know, because they get the job done. It doesn't matter how beautiful it is, doesn't matter how ugly it is. They find ways to win, especially against opponents like this. Because Bill Belichick wouldn't have over 300 wins in the NFL for no reason. He wouldn't be sitting here talking about, well, I might just coach into my 70s because I feel like it, kind of guy. Like, this is the kind of setup where you can't count these guys out ever, 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 ever.
Well, in his division, to be fair... In his division, you've got the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Bills. They
used to be good at one time, sir.
Well, two of them, being the Jets and the Dolphins, are some of the worst run organizations ever in the NFL. And the Bills have just been, nobody wants to go there. They do what they can, but they've never been over the hump. So, of course, Bill Belichick will want to grow in the 70s. He's going to have guaranteed wins every year. He's going to have at least, 6 guaranteed wins every year?
There was a time where the Bills made 4 straight Super Bowls. There was a time when the Jets won a Super Bowl. There was a time where the Dolphins went undefeated. But of course, those times are not now. So Bill Belichick.
Yeah, it was the 90s when the players weren't worried about. We didn't even have internet at that point. Consumer internet.
I was about to say we had military internet.
We didn't have consumer internet at that point. Like that's how far back we're talking. Players nowadays, they want to play in places that have good organizations or in warm environments. They don't want to play in Buffalo. There's nothing to do in Buffalo.
But there's no income tax for Miami either, so just keep that in mind.
That's why a lot of players come to Florida, because there's no state income tax.
And in the past 20 years, how many of them have won a Super Bowl? Anyways, looking at this game, though, I really do think
the Bucks.
That's the only one. And what's funny is that's on the cusp, because that's like right there.
That was 2000, right?
2002.
2002. All right.
Yeah. So either way, though, I think the Patriots are going to take this one because their defense is going to step up. The Ravens are going to be very, very very pesky in this game. I think Lamar Jackson is still going to put up some great numbers. He is the leading rusher and passer for this team. So at the end of the day, the Ravens are going to make things happen, but that defense is going to shut him down eventually, and it's going to happen in the second half. Patriots pull away. They end up taking this one by 7.
Oh, okay. Very good. Monday night game. Rematch. Cowboys, Giants. Cowboys 4-3 in the lead of the NFC East. And the 2-6 Giants at home. It is +7 for the Giants. We're both taking the Cowboys.
Come on, Giants.
I could see like this, maybe not the same performance that Dak Prescott had earlier this year against the Giants, where he threw for like 400 yards and like I think it was 3 touchdowns or something like that. He might not have a repeat performance, but it's going to be pretty close. I think he throws for a couple scores. He probably has right around 300, 350 yards passing. I don't think this is going to be even close.
Yeah, I'd like to try and think that the Giants can do the unthinkable, especially with them being back pretty much at full strength now with Saquon Barkley back and Sterling Shepard's been playing well. Golden Tate's in the lineup. But the Cowboys are honestly just too talented. The depth is just too good. If they play anything near how they played against the Eagles, then the Cowboys should be able to go out there and steamroll the Giants. However, the Giants have shown a propensity to be very pesky in games this year when they decide to be under Daniel Jones. So there's a possibility that this game could be a lot closer than what the spread is, which is Cowboys by 7. I can see this being a Cowboys win by 3. However, like I said, Cowboys are just too talented. The Cowboys are going to take this one either way. God, it hurts me to say that.
Well, we'll see how we do this week. We've got last week. We didn't cover this. We both went 13-2 in our picks last week.
Yeah, we killed it.
And so far on the season, you are 72, 48-1 for 60%. I am 78, 42-1 at 65%.
Look at you go, sir.
But we're off to a kind of a 500 start here. We both picked the 49ers that are good. Texans are about to beat the Jaguars 19-3. There's only 4.5 minutes left in that game, and Houston has the ball, so that game is probably wrapped up. But we'll see how we do this week. Tune in with Final Score next week, and of course on social media we'll be posting all of our stuff throughout the course of the week at PCN Final Score, and see how we did.
Absolutely. But we have to cut the commercial break so I could put some anti-burn cream on because of the horribleness I am wearing right now. So definitely make sure that you stay with us. When we come back, we're going to be hitting you with the World Series recap. That was such a shocker and historic for so many reasons. But to see that, you have to stay with us. We'll be right back.
The following support and sponsor Podcast City Network. City Limits Tap Room, sports bar in DeLand, Florida, has brew on tap, serve food, the grilled cheese is excellent. For upcoming events, check out City Limits Tap Room on Facebook.com/City Limits Tap Room. Atlantic Sounds has thousands of new and used vinyl records and CDs. If they don't have it, they can order it for you. Same location since 1982. For more updates on what's new, check out Atlantic Sounds on Facebook.com/Atlantic Sounds Vinyl. Sports Sanity Customs have worked with organizations from custom embroidering polo shirts to jerseys for your kids' baseball team. They do it all. Armed with state-of-the-art equipment and an in-house design team, they are equipped to take on your next project. Visit their website to learn more, sportsanitycustoms.com. Visit Sports Sanity Customs on Facebook.com/SportsSanityCustoms. 3Count Design offers a wide range of graphic design products, video, photography and other forms of media. Everything from t-shirt designs to websites. Visit Facebook.com/3CountDesign for more. Demo Blast Studios, an explosion of imagination. Original artwork, podcasts, video, apparel and more. Visit DemoBlastStudios.com. Visit Demoblast Studios on Facebook.com/Demoblast Studios, the best family entertainment pro wrestling show in the state of Kentucky. Kentucky's Own Wrestling brings quality family vintage wrestling to a town near you. Kentucky's Own Wrestling offers a ladies division in wrestling and a training school. Kentucky's Own Wrestling is the current longest running Southern promotion. Visit Facebook.com/Somerset Kentucky's Own Wrestling. All supporters and sponsors are brought to you by Podcast City Network.
And we are back here on Final Score with Chris and Craig. But we got some craziness to talk about now because we have some MLB news to talk about, most notably the World Series recap, which saw the Washington Nationals take the series 4-3 in the first time that every single
Road
win was done by the road team. Yes.
Yeah. Every single time the team was on the road, they win the game. And this got off to a hot start. I mean, the Nationals went into Houston, won the first game 5-4. The second game dominated 12-3, and
it was looking like a runaway.
It looked like it was going to be a sweep or winning 5 games or so. But the Astros, give a lot of credit to them. That's why they were one of the best teams in baseball. They stormed back, dominated 3 straight games, won it 4-1, 8-1, and 7-1 to force games 6 and 7 in Houston. And the Nationals, doing what they do best, they hang in ball games late and pulled away and won it in a Game 7 when they were trailing 2-0 in the 7th inning, scored 3 runs to take the lead, tack on a few more, win 6-2, get their first ever World Series title.
Absolutely historic. Nobody thought the Washington Nationals were going to even be able to sniff the World Series, let alone win it against one of the best bullpens in all of Major League Baseball. And not even just one of the best bullpens, one of the best overall teams that we've had probably over the past 3 or 4 years. And the Astros just looked astronomically amazingly bad at the end because they weren't able to pull it out. So, hats off to the Nationals being able. Oh, yes, I'll definitely take this hat off for that. But it's great. It's great to see them be able to go and get their first World Series title. I love seeing games like this. Now, obviously, the home crowds were pissed every single game, but it still was truly amazing and truly historic. Steven Strasburg ended up winning the MVP. He started in games 2 and 6 in this series. He pitched overall 14 innings, only had 12 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, 14 strikeouts, and pitched a 2.51 ERA for the series. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, he became the first pitcher in the postseason to finish 5-0, which is an amazing stat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Especially you got to think about you're getting your best shots from all the best teams in Major League Baseball.
Absolutely.
So that's a huge feat for him. And at 31, he finishes the postseason with 30 hits, 9 runs, 4 walks, and 47 strikeouts.
47 strikeouts.
1.98 ERA. That's insane.
That is absolutely insane. It's great to see him be able to go out there and do that. But it's so funny after last season talking about Bryce Harper and his departure to Philadelphia and how that was going to affect this team. And sure enough, they turn around and win the World Series.
Yeah, well, they had a rough start to the season. They were, I think, 19-31 to start the year, and we were sitting on this show talking about what is wrong with the Nationals, what's going on, and they just started putting some good games together and stringing a few win streaks together, and lo and behold, they've got themselves into the postseason, and once you get there, it's all up for grabs.
That's right. It's all up for grabs because they ended up just setting history, doing everything they did to be able to make it all the way to the World Series, knocking off teams we clearly thought they wouldn't be able to knock off, including the Braves, who were one of the strongest teams coming out of the NL, and they were just able to get it done. It was just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And there was a stat that I saw in the World Series that in games for the Nationals up until the 7th inning, they scored like single digit runs, and then from the 7th inning or later they or it was 12-21. They had scored 12 runs in the postseason in the first inning to the 6th inning, but then in the 7th inning or later they scored 21 runs. It was insane.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy to see how all of it went down, and I watched a couple of these games, and it was just crazy to see the back and forth and just seeing the road team just dominate. That's the craziest thing. Just the road team was always winning in this. And that's what just blew my mind because you've never seen that before. And we've only seen 3 teams ever even come back from losing the first 2 at home. And it was just absolutely amazing watching this. It was just truly historic.
Yeah, it was a great. I'm really happy to see that Max Scherzer finally gets his World Series ring. Of course, seeing him in Detroit all those years, it was really great to finally see him win one. And with all the stigma that has been following around Steven Strasburg, because remember when he came in, he was supposed to be a pitching phenom, and then he had some great stats, and then he got injured. He had Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago,
right? And
now it really changed how he approached his game on the mound, and he's still the dominant pitcher that he always has been, but it's just finally they put it all together, and it's crazy. I think it's just a crazy coincidence that they lost Bryce Harper, but then you heard a lot of the postseason post-game press conferences that they were saying that they enjoy playing together and they have a lot of fun. And it's like, okay, well, you weren't when he was there. Well, okay. Maybe a lot of pressure. I don't know.
Well, the big thing looking at it now is that it is going to be extremely hard for the Nationals to repeat because a story that broke as of last night was that World Series MVP Steven Strasburg is opting out of his contract with the Nationals. He had 4 years and $100 million left on his deal that he signed in 2016, and he faced a Saturday deadline to be able to opt out, so he had to have opted out by today, so he made the decision and announcement yesterday. So definitely going to be very, very interesting because he's going to be hitting free agency. off a great regular season where he posted a career high 18 wins and, of course, led the National League with 209 innings pitched, and which is amazing considering just the amount of injuries he's already battled throughout his career to be able to go out and put in that kind of work for the season. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Nationals might have lost Bryce Harper last year, probably going to lose, or obviously losing Steven Strasburg this year, but hey, they still got a pennant.
Doesn't mean they're going to lose. And, well, you got to think about it, though. They really were led to this World Series by their starting pitching. Their bullpen was okay. But, I mean, doesn't mean that he's not going to come back to Washington. I mean, he's got Scott Boras as his agent, who is one of the best agents in Major League Baseball. So, I mean, he's probably going to command top dollar.
Oh, absolutely.
Washington, that's what they were building their team around, was solid starting pitching. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes right back to Washington. But, of course, it's a free agency. You can never count anything out.
Absolutely. Anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
Just like looking at a lot of movements we've already seen now in Major League Baseball, some of them have been quite surprising looking at it, including the Philadelphia Phillies hiring Joe Girardi as their manager. He was the former manager for the Marlins back in 2006. Had one manager of the year, all that good stuff. And if you don't know who Joe Girardi is, you're living under a rock. Seriously.
Yeah, he was most famously played for a number of teams. He was catcher in the Major League Baseball, but he was the manager for the Yankees from 2008 to 17, won the World Series over the Philadelphia Phillies in 2009. But he's had a very good regular season record. I mean, he's had a lot of his Yankees teams have been very powerhouse dominant teams. 910 regular season wins for Joe Girardi.
That's good.
28-24 record in the postseason. But what they're hoping for is that he can come in and help. His big thing is he's played with Mariano Rivera, and he's like that. A lot of the greats on that Yankees team. But one of the big things that he's going to bring to this team is try to bolster their bullpen, which, as we've known from watching it pick a game any year in baseball, bullpens are very vital to a winning championship team.
Oh,
and that's one thing Joe Girardi really emphasizes with his baseball clubs. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and make some moves to try to get some solid bullpen help for the next season. And that's one thing that the Phillies really struggle with was their pitching. Starting pitching, bullpen, didn't matter. Their pitching struggled. They need a lot of help in that area.
Most definitely. And looking at other teams that are making moves, the LA Angels ended up hiring Joe Madden to be their new manager, and he spent 31 years with the Angels organization. But he was the Rays manager from 2006 to 2014, becoming AL East champs in 2008 and 2010. Ended up making a World Series appearance back in 2008 after they ended up knocking off the Red Sox to make it all the way in there, but lost in 5 games to Philly, funny enough, but did win Manager of the Year. So definitely been real good. But he's been able to make these playoff pushes when he was with the Rays, and like we said, 2008, 2010, 2011, 2013, being able to stay consistently in the playoffs.
Especially with it, they get no help from their management as far as, money being dumped into the roster. Make all the arguments you want either way, but what he was able to do with that team really helped, catapult him as a manager. And he was in line for other jobs before he got with the Rays, but that ultimately was great for Tampa Bay Rays fans and anyone here in the state of Florida. But
absolutely.
Then when he finally left in 2014, everyone knew he was going to go to the Cubs. Made him the highest paid manager, went there, and they've actually have been in the playoffs almost every single year. This last year was the first time they missed the playoffs under Joe Madden. Made the NLCS in 2015, where they lost to the Mets. 2016, where, of course, they won the World Series, the first World Series for the Cubs since 1908. Lost in the NLCS in 17. 18, they made the wild card. And then, of course, this year, third place in the NL Central. A lot of high expectations, but it's tough to sustain that kind of success over time, especially, 4 out of 5 years making the postseason is no joke in Major League Baseball.
So I always find it interesting when you see teams wanting to dump their managers after, just like one bad year, you know what I mean? And I think it's kind of a little bit slap in the face to him, but honestly, I think he's going to be able to go on and find a lot of great success with the Angels. The Angels have been a team trying to get back into relevance, but maybe having a skipper like Joe Madden will be able to get them there.
Well, the one thing he does really well is that he gets the best out of everybody on the roster.
Exactly.
He finds guys that maybe are underutilized, and they turn into be great players.
Exactly.
But the thing I want to make sure that to correct about the Cubs is that they both mutually wanted to be done. He was in the final year of his deal of an extension that he received after his first 2 years, and they were both kind of done. They felt it's run its course, and he was ready to go on to a new thing. And of course, with the Angels coming up, they now have to. You got to find somebody else to help Mike Trout. Yeah, you can applaud him on social media and on your Twitter account all you want. Oh, he won this award again this year, this award, that award. Yeah, but how many times he made the playoffs? 0, zip, zilch. You're terrible. You got to go get other people that are going to help make him better. You got to get other guys in the roster that are going to help with the hitting. You got to get better pitching. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that this team needs to work on, but I think this is a good step in the right direction to go get Joe Maddon.
Absolutely, I think it was, and I think it's really going to help them get them to where they need to go and be able to get back to relevance. However, I think the Chicago Cubs make an interesting hire, bringing in David Ross as their new manager. Nothing against David Ross. He did win two World Series titles, I should say, as a player with the 2013 Red Sox and the 2016 Cubs. Has worked for ESPN as a color analyst since 2017. But the big thing is that David Ross has no previous manager experience, and sometimes this could end up being one of those really great ideas that ends up working out, or it can show that it's a horrible idea because the guy has no experience. What can we expect from David Ross in Chicago?
It's really going to be an intriguing first year because they do still have a very stacked roster,
Absolutely.
But they're still going to need help. They just got to stay healthy first and foremost.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing.
But it's really an interesting hire because he is a past catcher in the major leagues, and that's really seemed to be one of the reasons why you can get a manager job is if you've been a catcher in the major leagues, you can coach apparently. So I think this is really an interesting hire for them because it's more so, hey, he won the World Series with us in 2016. He's going to come back. I think they're trying to appease the fan base a little bit here, but maybe it's a guy that Theo Epstein really trusts. I'm not really sure. This is a really questionable hire to me, but I don't know. He is a very smart baseball mind, so maybe this could work out for the Cubs. We'll see.
It definitely could, and we'll definitely have to see how that one works out going forward. But in other news, we had New York Mets had also hired Carlos Beltran as their manager. He also has no previous manager experience. It was a great player. What are the Mets trying to do with this?
No one knows what the Mets are ever doing.
This is very true.
It's very true. No one knows what the Mets are ever doing. I have no idea why they went in this direction. He played for the Mets for a number of years, but he was in line to be, I want to say, the Yankees. I was just reading this morning. I can't remember it now, but Carlos Beltran is going to be a very unique hire for the Mets because they have a lot of high expectations, but they haven't been able to fulfill those expectations. I don't think this is a great hire, but what do we know?
That's true. We're just guys who sit here and talk sports and, act like we know what we're talking about. So, whatever. But in other news, we obviously talked about Steven Strasburg and him opting out of his deal. But the Yankees also agreed to an extension with Chapman. That's also a big deal, given what the Yankees were able to do this past season after kind of, I don't want to say necessarily suffering through mediocrity because it wasn't like they were necessarily mediocre. They were just having a lot of bad luck. And we're missing playoffs, but now the Yankees finally take back over, won the AL East, and were able to push themselves almost all the way to the World Series. So definitely not a surprise that they signed this extension. Yeah,
it's a 2-year extension, and Chapman being 31 years old, he still has some stuff left. He's not throwing 108, 109 miles an hour anymore every time he's on the mound, but he's still up in the hundreds. So this is a smart move by the Yankees to keep a guy that they ultimately didn't want to let walk away into free agency. But I mean, he's struggled, Aroldis Chapman, a lot lately, and it's going to be really interesting to see what his next season, couple seasons, are going to be like.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. But now that we're at the end of the MLB season, we tip our hats and wave goodbye to this past season of 2019. Yep. And definitely can't wait for spring training come next year, 2020. Obviously, we won't be reporting quite as much of Major League now that the season is over, but definitely make sure that you stay tuned with us once we start gearing up, obviously for off-season moves, but also getting ready and geared up for spring training next year.
Yeah, and just a couple of quick names to throw out there that are going to be free agents this next offseason. Garrett Cole for the Astros, right-handed pitcher. He's 29 years old. That's going to be a big question mark for the Astros if they want to try to bring him back.
Definitely.
Number 2, Anthony Rendon, third baseman for the Nationals, who's been could have been the MVP of the whole postseason for them. They have to really decide: do they want to pay him? Do they want to pay Strasburg? I don't know if they're going to be able to do both of them. JD Martinez for your Red Sox, the DH. He's going to be hitting the market this year, so we'll see what happens if he ends up opting out of his final 3 years of his contract. But that's a potential there. And
then Alex Gordon of the Royals also, the Royals declined their half of the mutual option for 2020. So now Alex Gordon becomes a free agent. He was a 3-time All-Star and 6-time Gold Glove winner. So definitely watch out to see where he lands. Don't forget that he helped the Royals win that 2015 World Series. So definitely could be very interesting there.
Yep, a couple of the quick names: Rick Porcello of the Red Sox, Nick Castellanos for the Tigers, Didi Gregorius of the Yankees, Yasiel Puig of the Reds, who's been jumping around team to team lately for some reason, and Cole Hamels, 36-year-old left-handed pitcher. But some of these guys, of course, we're going to wait and see what's going to happen. Probably closer to spring training, because as we've seen in the last couple of years, they don't like to throw out the big deals. The owners don't like to throw out big deals right away for those big name guys. They're trying to send a message to the players, which is really alarming if you're a baseball fan.
Yeah, it really is, given that when you're in a league that doesn't have a whole lot in the way of cap, you kind of just go wild, it seems like, with some of these contracts. But owners, I feel like, are really starting to strap down and not try to put out as much money, because now they're trying to work themselves back down. Like the Red Sox are a perfect example right now, where ownership is saying that they want to greatly reduce the amount they spend on their roster. Red Sox have always been notably one of the number 2 team in spending every season, usually behind the Yankees. So definitely a very interesting approach, and could even lead to more offseason moves. There's already been a lot of rumors about Mookie Betts being moved just to unload that contract. And as of right now, the Red Sox are still releasing people out of the front office. So it's been really wild. So definitely make sure that you check back often, as we'll have some updates here and there for Major League Baseball. But switching gears, we're going to take a little bit of a look into the NHL season. It's been pretty wild so far. We're going to take a look at the standings right now. What do you got going on over there?
Well, looking at the Eastern Conference first. We'll start there. And you got to start in the Atlantic Division. It's already a very tough division to get started. Very competitive. Boston Bruins are leading that division right now with 22 points at 10 wins, 1 loss, 2 overtime losses. They've been playing very well behind the play of Tuukka Rask, who stopped almost every shot he's seen this year.
Every single one. They've only allowed 27 goals on the season, which is, I think, if I'm correct, this is the lowest mark in all of the NHL.
Correct. And
have a score differential of plus 19, tied for first with the Vancouver Canucks. Surprising that they're tied with them of all teams. But the Bruins, have been playing very well, are currently on a 5-game winning streak, and are just able to get it done. Get it done.
Yeah, this division is going to be very hotly contested, and you've got you were saying the Buffalo Sabres up there, the Florida Panthers are up there, tied in third place with the Maple Leafs and Canadiens, but Tampa Bay Lightning really struggling out the gate this year.
They definitely are. It's not been looking good. It's also not been looking good for your Detroit Red Wings either.
Again, we talked about this 2 weeks ago.
I got to poke at you every time.
Of course.
Especially now that I'm wearing Michigan gear right now.
Well, we knew the Red Wings were going to be struggling again this year. They went on, I think it was an 8-game losing streak just recently. So they really need to they got some time to turn things around. But I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning, you've got arguably the best roster in the NHL.
That's right.
And you've only got 14 points through 13 games, 6-5 with 2 overtime losses. They've given up 47 goals against and only 44 goals.
Yeah, they have not been playing great on the road. 4-4-1 on the road, not looking all that great. Tampa, better get your act together if you want to try and reach anywhere near the heights you had last season. But looking on over to the Metropolitan Division, the Washington Capitals, sitting at 10 wins, 2 losses, 3 overtime losses, and 23 points, have absolutely been outclassing the rest of this division outside a couple of teams. But Capitals looking really good and strong with Ovechkin, really wanting to go out there and try and show why they won the Stanley Cup not too long ago.
The World Series.
Almost said the World Series. World Series hangover, sorry.
Well, I mean, it's been a great time to be a fan in the Washington area.
Absolutely.
Except for the Redskins. Anyway, the Capitals, but really what we got to look at with the Capitals, Alex Ovechkin, he is climbing up that goal list for all-time goal leader. I believe he's got 667 now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, on the career.
And they've been off to a really good start, as most expected they would. But right behind them, nipping on their heels, the Islanders. Islanders have won 9 straight games, 13 games played, 20 points. They're killing it right now. They're doing great.
Yeah, 9-1 in their last 10, playing out of their mind, and are the only team, with the exception of the Ducks and the Jets and the Kings, who don't have an overtime loss randomly.
Yeah, randomly. Fun fact of the day.
Fun fact, ESPN style. But still, the Islanders have been a big surprise. They played pretty decent last season, but to see them come out the gate already 20 points and 10 wins in, or sitting second in their division, really bodes well to see what they can do the rest of the season. Carolina Hurricanes sitting right behind them by 1 point at 19 points, 9 wins, 4 losses, 1 overtime loss. Carolina Hurricanes, one of those teams we could see that was going to try and rise up this season and try and make some noise, and already are out the gate. But, the New Jersey Devils. Ooh.
Yeah, the Devils are a young team. They went out and got a couple of names, but I mean they're still a young team. The New York Rangers, they went out and spent a lot of money in the offseason. They're really hoping that it would help turn their fortunes around. But I mean, 5-5-1. You've only got 11 points through 11 games. Not a great start for the Rangers in that tough division.
Yeah, definitely not. My Flyers sitting there 6-5-2, 14 points. Had a win over the Devils in a shootout recently, but the Flyers not looking all that great either. But
playing well at home, at least.
Playing well at home. That's right. We are 4-1-1 at home, but can't get it done on the road at 2-4-1. So we'll definitely see as we go forward. But switching gears over to the Western Conference, the St. Louis Blues have risen up and are now leading the Central Division at 9 wins, 3 losses, and 3 overtime losses with 21 points. Currently on a 4-game winning streak. However, they got a couple little issues going on with their roster.
They absolutely do. We'll talk about that in a second. The Nashville Predators in second place.
Can't go wrong with that. They're looking pretty solid, 18 points. Lost 2 straight, though, but still have a score differential of plus 12, so looking real strong so far.
That's what I'm looking at. If you're looking at early on who's playing very well, is the Nashville Predators. You got a plus 12 goal differential. That's always a good sign. But, yeah, 18 points, neck and neck with the Colorado Avalanche, who are also one of the other teams that should be taking a step forward this year. They're a very young, very talented team. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now, but they're still in third place in that Central Division with 18 points.
Absolutely. Definitely been getting it going. I can't even.
Getting it going.
I need to get my English going. Get her done.
Get her done.
But looking at a lot of it, it's been really insane. Minnesota Wild, though, look how bad they've been. It's just been horrendous.
Well, that's another team that spent a lot of money in recent years, and they've,
have been able to get it going.
A lot of experts kind of saw that this was coming. Looking at how they've really handled their offseason, it's not been great. They have not been very good off seasons lately. So finally rears its ugly head, and they're off to a really rough start.
But you know who's looking great in the Pacific Division? The Edmonton Oilers, sitting with 10 wins, 4 losses, 1 overtime loss, 21 points. Absolutely killing it with Connor McDavid. I tell you what, he's the class of the West right now.
He's been on a roll. They've had one of the highest scoring lines, that first line that they have in the NHL, and they've been playing so well. Them and probably the Canucks are probably the 2 big surprise teams this year in the NHL.
Absolutely,
because you've got the Canucks at 20 points. They've got a plus 19 goal differential. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. They've only allowed 34 goals, and they've scored 53.
Yeah, 34 goals makes them, I believe, second, third best, somewhere around there in the top 5. Canucks, no one thought that Vancouver was going to come out and be able to be like this early on. Now, the big question is, though, is if Vancouver can sustain it. And that's going to be the big question going forward, because we see a lot of teams come out a little bit hot through the first 15, 20 games or so, and then start to fizzle out as you start getting into the season. Injuries start taking place. You start getting against better and better competition. So we'll see what happens with Vancouver going forward. I'm very interested to see. But another team I'm keeping an eye on is the 2 teams right behind Vancouver, and the Anaheim Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights. Both teams were really strong playoff contenders last year, both now sitting with 18 points, sitting 3rd and 4th in the Pacific Division. I don't know, though. Anaheim has not shown me a lot to make me feel like they are going to be one of those teams that's going to be able to keep it sustained this year. Vegas might, but it's really hard to tell at this point.
Well, it's really tough because you got the Vegas Golden Knights and the Calgary Flames, two of the best teams in the NHL last year. They're still nipping at your heels there. It's a tough division, and at some point, you got to think the Sharks are going to turn it around. But they're off to a very rough start.
Very rough. 4
wins, 10 losses, 1 overtime loss, only 9 points on the year, and that is tied for second worst in the NHL.
And a negative 20 score differential, second worst in the NHL as well.
Yeah, and they've lost 5 straight. When you give up 56 goals already in 15 games, that's pretty alarming.
That's very, very alarming. So San Jose better be getting their stuff together if they want to try and make any kind of a push. And what's bad is you even look at their last 5 losses, they're not all against super awesome teams. Like the Canucks are a good one, the Bruins are a good one, but you lost 5-2 to the Senators. You lost 3-2 to the Jets, and then you also lost 4-1 to the Maple Leafs. So it's kind of interesting that you had this team that made it so far in the playoffs last year and now are just falling flat on their face to start the season. Definitely very interesting.
Well, I mean, they got some time to turn it around because they got a couple of easy games, supposedly easy games coming up here. They play they're in the middle of a home stretch where they've got 5 straight games at home. They're playing the Blackhawks, the Wild. Those should be 2 games they should easily win. Then you got 2 tough games against Nashville and Edmonton. So it's still early. They still got time to turn it around, but yeah, they absolutely need to find a way to, stop letting people score goals.
Yeah, stop. It's that thing you got to do to kind of win games. But looking at some NHL news, though, right now, a lot of craziness has been going on, including a huge injury to St. Louis Blues, Vladimir Tarasenko, who ended up with a massive shoulder injury and is looking to be out for upwards of 5 months from this injury and was recently just placed on injured reserve, as reported 4 days ago. So definitely a huge blow to the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be tough for them to continue. But what they've been doing, I mean, you still got Pietrangelo and O'Reilly and guys like that on your team. So, I mean, they can still do it. And what you've seen already and where they're at, they've still been winning since that announcement was made. They've won. They're still undefeated, really. Since he went down. So it's still early. You can still get him back maybe later in the year, but we'll see. It's gonna be tough sledding for them, but there's still time.
Yeah, there's definitely still time. We'll definitely see what happens with that and keep you updated on all things NHL going forward. But first, we have to get to the NHL Players of the Month. Who we got?
Yeah, they released this a couple days ago. The NHL releases, of course, their 3 stars of the month. The first star goes to John Carlson, defenseman for the Washington Capitals. He's got 7 goals, 16 assists, and 23 points in 14 games of that month. He has been absolutely on fire, but he is leading all defensemen in those categories: goals, assists, and points. He ranks 3rd in the entire NHL through the 14 games. Off to a really hot start for him.
Looking really good. Who's our second star?
That second star, we got David Pastrnak, the right winger from the Boston Bruins. He's shared the league lead with 12 goals, and he's got 24 points in 12 contests. He got 12 goals, 12 assists, 24 points through 12 games through the end of October. And that's really what has catapulted Boston off to their hot start.
Man, absolutely crazy. Our third star to Leon. I'm sure I'm going to go ahead and butcher this a little. All right. Leon Draisaitl.
That's pretty close.
See, I can pull it off every now and then. Center for the Edmonton Oilers. Guy's been playing lights out. Of course, you always get overshadowed by Connor McDavid, but this guy's always a very great contributor to the team. So far this season, what's he got here? 13 goals, 13 assists, 26 points. Been playing really, really good so far. So definitely make sure we keep an eye on him going forward. He's one that could be a really great contributor, especially if Connor McDavid would ever go down with an injury or anything like he has in years past.
So fun fact about this. There's only one player in Edmonton history that has scored more goals in a single October than Leon. You want to take a guess who that might be?
Wayne Gretzky.
Oh, shocker. Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky in 1981 had 13 goals, 14 assists, and 27 points in 13 games. And then at 83, he had 13 goals, 14 assists, 27 points in 12 games. So the fact that he had 12 goals in the month of October puts him in great company in Edmonton Oilers history.
Oh, and he also just hit the overtime game winner against the Penguins in their last game to give them the win 2-1. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm happy that the Edmonton Oilers are finally starting to put it together. It seems like that's a great fan base. They've been really great. They've been really deprived of any success over the last 20, 30 years.
Well, it's like you get Wayne Gretzky and then it gets all torn away from you. So it's like,
yeah,
it is what it is.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. That's right. You'll get yours, Edmonton. You'll get yours. But switching gears over to the NBA, a lot of the crazy things have been going on so far, and it's been a very interesting and, dare I say, aggressive beginning to the season. Taking a look at the standings now, it's been pretty wild all the way through, but my computer's being slow, so go ahead and hit us off.
I'm going to start right off in the Eastern Conference. We're going to start at the Atlantic Division, the undefeated Philadelphia.
Undefeated.
No, Paul Heyman.
World heavy. Oh, sorry.
I mean, that's another, and we could talk about that for another show if you want, wrestling and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's
Brock Lesnar, quote unquote, quitting on SmackDown. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole thing unto itself.
Yeah. Philadelphia 76ers undefeated right now. They are 5-0, sitting at the top of the Atlantic Division. They have a differential of 9 points, and they've won most of their games on the road, which is really impressive. But they've started off at 5-1. Right behind them, Boston Celtics at 4-1. Their only loss coming to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Funny enough.
And the Raptors at 4-2, sitting right behind them, defending champs. Brooklyn Nets 2-4. New York Knicks 1-5.
Yeah, not too surprised there on the back end, but still we were very early on in the season. A lot of teams only played 5 or 6 games, 7 in some cases. So very, very early in the season. So a lot of this will change. But surprisingly, the Cleveland Cavaliers are sitting there at 2-3 as the current number 8 seed. Yeah, that's not going to last very long. So definitely make sure you keep an eye out. A lot of craziness. Orlando at 2-4 though dropped a heartbreaker last night. It hurt me to the core. Was very surprised that they dropped that game. But they also got outclassed and manhandled by Milwaukee earlier. So it's been crazy. But Fultz has been playing really good.
Stop. He's not that good.
He's that good.
I hope that he does turn it around. That'd be great. But if you look at how he's played, his stat line looks okay, but he hasn't been taking jump shots. And if that's the key for him, if he doesn't have to take jump shots, he'll be very effective. But if he's got to shoot the ball, that's where he struggles mightily. And that's what he's really been having to work on his whole career.
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a problem for him. But I think now moving with a new team, being able to get into a new type of offensive subset, it's been able to really kind of help him break out and let him be him. Because Fultz didn't play horrible. He just, wasn't all there. He had 9 points on the game, had a rebound and 2 assists, 3 steals. So he wasn't playing horrible. He shot 4 of 7. So it's not horrible, but obviously you're going to want more production out of him going forward.
Right. And looking at just kind of the Magic real quick, looking at kind of how things are set up. They're playing through Nick Vucevic, which is probably their smartest idea.
Yeah.
He's tied with the team average of 16.8 a game, averaging 9 boards. Evan Fournier is possibly actually playing well consistently, which has really been his issue.
Yeah, that's always been his issue because he's honestly a great perimeter shooter, but he's just finding that consistency is always a big thing.
Yeah, what you really want to see though, if you're Orlando, you want to see Aaron Gordon play better. His stats aren't showing it. He's playing okay, but I mean, you need him to rebound the ball better. He's only averaging 6 boards a game, and for as athletic of a player as he is, maybe it's just how they have they're running their sets and everything. But he's not in position to get to getting rebounds. So averaging 11 points right now, he's not really looking too great of a season start for him.
Definitely not. But looking over at the Western Conference, this one's been a little bit of surprising as well.
You skipped the Central.
What Central? There is no Central.
You skipped the Central.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Bucks, the Pistons, the Cavs.
Nobody cares.
Stop.
Nobody cares. We all know what's going to happen there.
You're looking at just the conferences.
I am.
You need to look at divisions.
You know why? Because nobody cares about the divisions right now. It's all about being in those top 8 seeds.
You know what?
That we already know Milwaukee's going to run away with it.
You know what? I don't know.
Exactly.
You've got a point.
I do, especially so early in the season. But looking at the Western Conference, the Minnesota Timberwolves are surprisingly number one at 4-1. 4-1, obviously in their last 5, but had lost a game a couple games ago. But they're playing
76ers.
okay.
It was a game of that brawl.
It was that brawl, which we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But the LA Lakers sitting number 2 at 4-1. They had that opening day loss and have been lights out ever since, and are currently leading the league in score differential at a whopping 11.2. Yeah, it's like somebody predicted that.
But I mean, you look at their schedule, who they've played. They lost the game against the Clippers. The game against the Jazz was a big win for them, but the last 3 games, Hornets, Grizzlies, Mavericks.
But the thing is, I look at too, is that they've been able to go out. I wouldn't say necessarily dominate, except with the exception of the Grizzlies and Hornets. But the Mavs game, you have LeBron turn in a triple-double and looking like his old self in that game. So it's great to see them go out and do that, especially with little bits of nicks and bruises, as you could say, that they've been dealing with along the way. So they've been able to get it done ever since that opening day loss to the Clippers.
Yeah, the one team I want to point out here is not necessarily at the top, because a lot of other teams that are in the playoff hunt right now are, as you would expect to be in there. Maybe the Suns you could throw in there. They're 4-2. They're off to a hot start. But on the other end, I mean, the Golden State Warriors.
1-5.
1-5 to start the year. They are off to a horrible start. And to add insult to injury, Steph Curry is out for 3 months for broken wrist.
Minimum
3 months.
Yeah, minimum 3 months with a broken hand wrist. Definitely not going to be helping. I don't know if you actually saw the highlight of when that happened. It actually looked pretty bad.
Yeah, it did look pretty rough.
But, a big thing, too, even before that happened, Steve Kerr, and said that, blowout losses, you're going to have to expect that this season. This isn't the Golden State of old anymore. This isn't the defensive powerhouse that's able to just flip the boards and make everything crazy happen. This is not that team. And now Steph Curry is out, so now you're really going to be relying on D'Angelo Russell and Draymond Green to really be the team at this point and use whatever else they have on the roster. And as you can see here, has not been working out well for them. Yeah,
they've had a couple of really bad losses. The second game of the season, they were at Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is not expected to be a great team this year, and Oklahoma City blew out the Warriors.
Flat out blew them out.
They blew them out. And then a couple other losses they had. They lost 3 straight games at home.
Yeah.
Suns, Spurs, Hornets. 2 of those games, I mean, you could really scratch your head. The Hornets and the Suns, 2 teams that are expected to be some of the worst teams in the NBA, and you're losing these games at home. It's not great. Not a great sign for the Warriors. And this is, like you said, they're a very different team than they have been 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah, look at it.
4 years ago.
You no longer have Iguodala. He's gone. He got shipped out. You have Kevin Durant, who left and went to Brooklyn. Now you have Steph Curry out after breaking his hand. This whole team's been turned on its head.
And you're still missing Klay Thompson.
Who you won't get back until probably the end of the season at best. So it's going to be very interesting to see the tough sledding they're going to have to go through to even stay viably in the running for the playoffs.
And in a loaded Western Conference, you got to imagine if it's already through November, if they're at the 4th and 5th spot in their division, you might as well just pack it up and tank it.
Absolutely.
At that point, you might as well just tell Klay Thompson, don't even come back. Tell Steph Curry, hey, just take your time. Don't come back. This is not a good year. And you might as well just start tanking, try to get a good draft pick, and hopefully you can clear up some cap space to go make some moves in the offseason and get yourself back into contention.
Yeah, which they might definitely be able to do, but for this season, it might be just lost. Looking at some other notable teams that are a little bit of a surprise, looking at the Houston Rockets only sitting there 3-2 as barely the number 8 in their conference. I thought might have been able to have a little bit more production, but it looks like not all things are totally copacetic in Houston.
Well, they've had a lot of their games. They've been in most of their games. But, I mean, you're still only sitting at 3-2. The 2 losses are to the Bucks and the Nets. The Nets is kind of like, okay, that one probably could have won.
Right.
But the Bucks game, they were leading this game the whole way. And you see all the crazy, if you're paying attention.
Then pay attention harder.
If you're paying attention to the Houston Rockets,
right,
then you see that, okay, well, James Harden and Russell Westbrook are borderline triple doubles every night, but they're not consistently winning.
Exactly.
And I think that's going to be the telltale sign for them why they're not going to win a championship. Mm-hmm. And because of the fact that throughout the regular season, you can play the Wizards, the Thunders, the Pelicans, and all those teams. You're going to play those teams a lot.
Oh, definitely.
You're going to play the bottom feeders all the time. But when you get into the playoffs, you're playing against the best of the best, and you got to be able to bring it every single night.
Definitely.
And be able to hold off those teams. I don't think the Rockets can do that. But they had that game against the opening night against the Bucks. They had it in the bag. Giannis was out for the final 5 minutes of the game, fouled out, and they still lost the game.
Still lost. Absolutely ridiculous.
It's still early. There's a lot of time to gel. You got two guys that used to play together, but then they branched off and did their own thing. Now they're their own men, and now they're trying to come back together. It's going to take some time to mesh, but I think they'll be fine. They'll make the playoffs, but I'll be worried about them once they get there.
Most definitely, but we'll definitely see how things shake out. It's still a long season. Like we said earlier, some teams are only 5, 6, 7 games in, so we have an 82-game season. So
long road ahead.
Yeah, still a lot of things that could happen, so definitely make sure that you stay tuned with Final Score and following us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at PCN Final Score, so you can get all the latest updates there. And, it's been really surprising how this NBA season has unfolded so far, but who do you have for your players of the week?
Players of the week that released about a week ago, actually. In the West, Karl-Anthony Towns. Minnesota's off to that hot start. He's been playing extremely well. In the East, Trae Young, Atlanta Hawks.
Absolutely.
They've been playing. They've been in a lot of games. They've made it really exciting. They're still only sitting at 2-3 on the year, and of course, it's too early to have a Player of the Month. The NBA always does October and November together as a Player of the Month. So, of course, we'll always bring you those as those come up.
But don't forget that we did have Towns involved in an incident, Karl-Anthony Towns, when they were playing the Philadelphia 76ers in one of their past games. What happened there?
Really what it was is Joel Embiid and Karl-Anthony Towns involved. They were just kind of going after each other all day. Throughout the whole game, and it just kind of came to a boiling point. And that's kind of what you get when you have Joel Embiid on your team, is that he is the kind of guy that likes to get under other guys' skin.
Absolutely.
And he likes to be very boisterous in how he plays, and eventually that comes back to bite him in the ass.
Yeah, bit him real hard, and it was definitely interesting. Saw them basically having a nice aggressive hug fest for a little bit, it seemed like. But definitely it was very interesting to see all that. Both players ended up being ejected from that game.
And banned for 2 more games.
So definitely see how both those teams fare during that time. Definitely it was very interesting to see all that happen. But that is NBA for today. We definitely got to switch gears on over now to the good old sports history. What do we got?
First thing for the sports history, we've got November 2nd, 1895. We're way back for this one.
Throwing it back.
First organized auto race in the United States is run in Chicago. 6 cars race over 52-mile lakefront course. 2 finished because of blizzard conditions.
Didn't seem like a good idea maybe to have the race that day.
That's probably not a good idea. But you know, it is Chicago.
And it was 1895, so who knew better, right?
Yeah, we didn't have weathermen that could still incorrectly predict what the weather's going to be.
Exactly. They just go outside and be like, hey there, chappie, it looks like it might snow. And that was about the extent you got.
We don't sound like Southern.
I don't know. I was just throwing stuff out there. They're yokels.
No,
back
it's
then.
it's like
it was the Midwest.
It's the Great Lakes. We don't sound like we're from Southern. We don't sound like we're plantation owners.
Whoa, sir. You went there, not me. November 2nd, 1991, Nevada makes the biggest comeback in NCAA football history, overcoming a 35-point third-quarter deficit to rally and beat Weber State 55-49.
Woo, that's tough when you got to beat a Division I AA team like that.
Yeah, right?
November 3rd, 1962, Wilt Chamberlain scores 72 points against the LA Lakers. He was then playing for the San Francisco Warriors. That was the 4th highest point total in NBA history. He made 29 field goals and 14 free throws. Remains the 6th highest game total to this day.
So crazy. November 3rd, 1990, TCU quarterback Matt Vogler completes 44 passes, including 5 touchdowns, for an NCAA football record 690 passing yards in a 56-35 loss to Houston at the Astrodome. And, of course, Cougars quarterback David Klinger throws 7 touchdowns in that game.
Of course. I mean, who could forget David Klinger? And November 3rd, 2007, Navy beats your Notre Dame Fighting Irish 46-44 in triple overtime, ending the Fighting Irish's NCAA football record winning streak against the Midshipmen, which was at 43 games. The last Navy win over Notre Dame was 35-14 in 1963.
With Staubach, if I'm not mistaken. Or with Staubach. So, yeah, that one hurt, but we've beaten them since, so take it, Navy. November 4th, 1934, after posting 7 straight shutouts to start the NFL season, your Detroit Lions beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 40-7 at the University of Detroit Stadium and scored upon for the first time of the season and rushed for an NFL single-game record of 426 yards.
Back when the Lions were actually good and relevant.
Yeah, buddy.
We won a lot of NFL championships, but they don't mean jack in the Super Bowl era.
Does that put you on par with the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, we were better than the Cleveland Browns.
Even the Otto Graham Cleveland Browns?
Bobby Lane.
All right, enough said.
There you go. That's all you need. November 4th, 1987, the NBA announces 4 new franchises. Charlotte, Miami in 1988, and Minneapolis and our own Orlando Magic in 1989.
Huge and historic. November 6th, 1869, the first intercollegiate football game is played between Rutgers and Princeton, kicking off what is now known as college football. Rutgers wins that game 6-4. It was scored like soccer then.
Yeah, it's good to see that Rutgers is still putting up the same numbers this day and age. So we got November 6, 1995, Art Modell officially announces the Cleveland Browns are moving to Baltimore.
Yeah, it's pissing off an entire fan base.
Yep.
November 7th, 1991, Magic Johnson announces he has HIV virus and retires from the LA Lakers, but somehow makes a miraculous recovery and is still here today.
And it still lived because he injects himself with cash. South Park reference, if you get that. South Park reference. November 8th, 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson signs an antitrust immunity to the AFL-NFL merger.
That's right. No antitrust issues there because you can't do it. Look at that. November 9th, 1996, Evander Holyfield upsets Mike Tyson in the 11th round knockout in Las Vegas to regain the WBA heavyweight boxing title, the second boxer after Muhammad Ali to win a heavyweight title 3 times.
And our last date in sports history, November 9th, 2015, the World Anti-Doping Agency Commission report recommends that Russian Federation be banned from athletic competitions for running a, quote, state-supported doping program. It's Russia. Shocker.
Yeah, what a shocker. Vlad came in and was able to do with 28-inch biceps. Anyways, that's the end of our sports history. Now we're going to shift gears on to Give or Go.
You ever go? I'm going to give you the first one here. I actually have a few things I want to point out on this too, but we're going to toss this one up to you. Arena Football League has shut down operations. They have not folded, but they have ceased minor operations.
Yeah, I'm going to give on this one for a little bit because the Arena Football League, I feel like at one point, upwards of 15 years ago, was a very solid entity. It was having their championship games broadcast on national television on the big networks, had great teams playing all over from the Philadelphia Soul, the Orlando Rays, the Tampa Bay Storm, the New Orleans Voodoo. They had all kinds of great teams, even the Chicago Renegades. That was a really big team who won a lot of titles late in this in the run. But after change of ownership, the whole league started just going downhill. At one point, they had 19 teams as part of the league. They ended operations with six teams. Absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, the one thing you got to look at with Arena League football is that Arena football it was successful, but it did its part. They wanted to essentially bring more light to that kind of a sport, and they did. But the problem is that now that there's so many of them around the country, it's all very regionalized. I mean, we have a number of them here in the state. Orlando Predators came back. They play in the National Arena League along with the Jacksonville Sharks, who used to be in the AFL. The Tampa Bay team isn't around anymore.
Yeah, Tampa Bay Storm completely folded up shop after leaving the AFL after a lot of questionable moves and deals that were made with the AFL. So they decided to fold up altogether.
Yeah, but there are some surrounding area. There's actually one in Tarpon Springs.
Oh, I didn't
they
know
play
that.
in little. They play in like the little memorial arenas kind of thing, very small, but there's a lot of very small operations out there as well. And that's kind of what thing that really hurts the Arena League is that there's so many of them that can pop up. And the Arena League essentially had shady business practices because they were not only you pay your league dues all the time.
Of course.
They were demanding
which were astronomical.
Yeah, they were demanding theirs like up front right away.
Lock yourself in.
Yeah, and a lot of these teams were starting at a deficit to begin the year because their league fees were so high. They had to pay their players a lot more than a lot of these other arena league teams do. And that's what a lot of people consider to be the initial downfall is the players tried to essentially go on strike to get paid similar to NFL teams and NFL players. And that really, it really just kind of started the whole process of first domino to fall. But to think about it at this point, the AFL, not only did they have all those teams, they had their own development league teams. There was the AF2. If you guys remember that. It was AFL and then the AF2.
And I remember they had the Daytona Beach Thunder, who actually did a tryout for at one point. So, but all of that ended up going by the wayside too. Yeah, until from 2000 to 2009 they had it. They had the AF2, and then they essentially just kind of consolidated it and went back to what they're doing here. Yeah. They actually had to relaunch the league in 2010. Yeah, it was crazy. So the Arena League, now that they have this new ownership making all these shady dealings and practices, it's been just horrible. At this point, though, do you see the AFL being able to make any kind of a comeback? The AFL by itself, no. But there are, the National Arena League has been very successful over the last couple of years. They have a much different structure as far as business is concerned. And the Jacksonville Sharks have been very successful there. The Predators have joined that now. Have not been quite as successful, though. But it's their first year back. It is their first year. But the Arena League, I think, as it stands and as everyone thinks about it, is probably done because there's so many other leagues that have popped up now. Definitely have. So moving on to our next one. Patriots head coach Bill Belichick said he hasn't ruled out coaching into his 70s. Give or go. Go, because like I said earlier in the show, when you've got the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets in your division, you're guaranteed 6 wins every year. So have a day, Belichick. Coach until you're 90 for all I care. Oh my gosh. Brady's probably going to play till he's 50. So just play until Brady retires, and then you can retire. You can be that guy. Next one for you, give or go. USC says it will do, quote, whatever it takes to get Urban Meyer out of retirement to coach the Trojans. I'm going to slightly give on this. So the big thing with this is that Urban Meyer has been trying to be lured out of retirement since leaving Ohio State already. A lot of people always try to put Urban Meyer at the top of their list, but the guy retired. Okay, and I know he said it because of health issues, and I know he said the same thing when he left Florida, but he is retired now. You're making my argument for me. The thing is that he retired due to health issues. Okay, well, his health issues is that he was banging too many people that he wasn't married to. And I am floored. But either way, you know what? Let's take all the Urban Meyer stuff, and just put it to the side. Let's look at USC. Because at the end of the day, USC still has not finalized a deal to bring in a new athletic director since Lynn Swann left September 9th and resigned. Now, they are getting close to signing a deal with the current Cincinnati athletic director, Mike Bond, to make him the next USC AD. However, this is USC, who are still going to have to figure out what they're going to do with their current head coach, who they still have, and head coach Helton. So until Helton is dealt with, I don't see anything happening here whatsoever. And let's not forget, USC is actually not that bad of a team this year. Obviously they're not the Pete Carroll USC teams of old, but this is still a team that is very dangerous. Almost knocked off Notre Dame, with almost beat a number of teams that were ranked. So what's their record this year? Like 5-4. But either way though, this is not like a complete bottom feeder team. And like I said, they still have to deal with the head coach. So until they even get rid of him, looking at any coach is going to be a disaster. But trying to say you're going to go and do whatever it takes to get Urban Meyer, that's a joke. Sorry, that's an absolute joke. I've been saying this for months on the show. Urban Meyer is going to coach USC. No, he's not. I have been saying it for months. You want another bet on it? No, I'm already wearing Michigan gear right now. I'm on a good streak right now. So USC is, and to your point, yes, they're not the USC of old with Pete Carroll. That's the point. That's what they want. They care about the showmanship. They care about the butts in the seats. They want the boosters to be happy. And it's in LA. Of all places, it's in LA. It's like the Lakers. What are the Lakers going to do? They went out and got LeBron James.
They went out and got Magic Johnson as their GM because that's the name. They go for the names. That's what LA is all about. LA is all about the names. Urban Meyer, right here. I've said it for months. Urban Meyer will be the next coach of the USC Trojans next season.
You know, how does going out and getting names help them before? Look at it. Lynn Swann was your AD. How'd that work out? Lane Kiffin used to be the head coach of this team. How'd that work out? Honestly, USC has not had a lot of success outside of Pete Carroll when it comes to their football program over the last 20 years.
LA doesn't care.
They're going to have to care if they want to put the butts in the seats and get those wins that they're going to need to be able to beat their rivals like UCLA, to beat the rivals like Cal and Stanford, to beat the Oregons, to beat the Notre Dames.
If they go out and get Urban Meyer, it will be on the same level as Calipari going to Kentucky.
Oh, my God. There's no way Urban Meyer comes out of retirement for USC. I can see it for some. No, because I'm already wearing Michigan gear because of you. I will not wear USC gear.
It's because he loses to me.
Who has the better college record? Either way, though, what I look at
Wait, don't you have wins that were vacated?
I'm talking about my wins, not Notre Dame's, okay?
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, because this season I'm better than you, okay?
Just in college, I got the NFL record on you.
Yeah, but we're talking college right now, not NFL.
Oh, yeah.
So either way, though, I just don't see a world where Urban Meyer is going to come out of retirement for USC. If it was certain other programs where he'd be able to really suck in the recruits, especially if it was another SEC school or even a school that's generally in the Southeast or on the East Coast that's a big-time program, maybe. But I don't see it with USC.
This is perfect for Urban Meyer. It's perfect for him because they are going to do whatever it takes. They're going to cover up everything they need to cover up for him to be able to do what he needs to do. LA, how hard is it to recruit for LA? USC still gets great recruits even with bad coaching staffs.
That's true, but we're also talking about being able to hit into Florida.
And in their Pac-12. Look at the Pac-12. Who do you got? Right now you got Utah and Oregon right now. They're both in the north. Mm-hmm. You have no competition in the Pac-12 South.
That is true.
No competition. He can come in right away, first year, and win 7 or 8 games and win most of those in conference, make the Pac-12 championship game, and then make some noise. Guess what? Now you're going to start pulling in recruits. Look what he did at Ohio State, of all places. He did that in the Midwest or in the Great Lakes where recruits don't really...
Yeah, but
they're not on the same talent level as the South anymore.
Yeah, but you're at Ohio State, which is able to pull a national base of recruits without much issue, whether they try to recruit California.
Yeah, of course, because you got to just have a heartbeat and a 0.01 GPA to get in that school.
Yeah, it can't be like Notre Dame, you know.
Or Michigan. You got to actually be able to get into those schools academically.
This is true.
Ohio State doesn't care. Like, oh, you got a pulse? Okay, you got a 1.0 GPA? You're in. We got you.
I guess that does fit to USC as well. So
exactly. All they care about is athletics. Look at Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, just recently.
This is so bad because I want to make a bet.
We're going to make a bet, and you're going to lose. This could be great.
I will not wear USC gear, though. It will not happen.
Oh, that'd be great.
No, I draw the line.
No, you know what? This is going to be great. I'm going to get you a USC Trojan costume.
Oh, my fucking.
And then you're going to do the fight song.
Oh, my God.
You see it here. This is great.
So,
and it's a win-win for me because I have no rooting interest in USC.
I know we have our thing with Michigan, but USC is the largest rival to Notre Dame. I don't know if I can sync myself to that.
This is going to happen.
Make sure you check back on future episodes to see if I decide to accept this.
This is going to happen.
Over. Our next one, wide receiver Amari Cooper prefers to postpone contract talks until after the season now. Give her a go.
Smart move, because if you wait till the end of the year and you end up having a good year, you can use that as fuel. But if you say right now you want this level of a contract and you don't perform up there, the Cowboys, Jerry Jones does his thing, goes, no, we're not going to pay you that. But I think part of what he's going to do is he's going to wait to the end of the season. If he doesn't get the offer he wants, he's hitting the free agent market. Doesn't have to worry about it.
That's a good point. Very good point.
Last one to you. Give or go. I know we're both excited about this.
I'm so excited about
EA Sports open to relaunching the NCAA football franchise after the Fair Pay to Play Act is pushed through by the NCAA, I guess.
Yeah, definitely going to give on this because this is a huge move, because I see the EA Sports relaunching NCAA football as the very first large business entity that's going to try and contract with all these athletes outside of their schools. This is going to be the first one to go because everybody, players, fans, little kids who even know what football is, want to play this game. I literally went out last night and bought an Xbox 360 controller so I could sit down and play both of my NCAA football games last night because I had to go ahead and brush up.
I got 14 here. I got 14 here in studio.
I got 14 and 13.
Ooh, 14's better.
I don't know. 13 had a better dynasty mode in my opinion. Recruiting was easier, but gameplay wise, 14 I think had the overall better game mechanics. Either way though, all that aside, with us having the Fair Pay to Play Act, this is going to change the game when it comes to having this franchise back, because now you can just contract directly with the player rather than having to go through the school. Now, obviously, if you want to be able to have the University of Florida or have Missouri or whatever on your cover, you're going to need to go out and contract and license individually with the school. But I don't think the schools are going to have too much issue with that, because you're going to throw money at them and they're just going to be like, okay, we'll take your money. But now you can be able to throw money at these kids. You're going to be able to make a little bit of pocket change and be able to get our favorite football game back.
So what kind of pocket change do you think they're going to get?
And that's the big thing. And what's funny, that's been the biggest question, is what is the value of
I can already tell you
likeness, and
I can already tell you. We both love this game. Absolutely. I used to look forward to this.
Favorite.
I used to look forward to this game every single year.
It was the only one I would pre-order.
Here's the issue. That's not their biggest moneymaker. Not even close.
Well, no.
EA.
No, it's Madden.
Yeah. What's going to happen? The first year, everyone's going to be excited about it. Yeah, it's going to be great. Players are going to get paid. They're going to get their little royalty checks, like $100 each. Because think about how many teams, how many players in the country, and if you're going to be in the game, you can make likeness off of your.
But do you think they do it using a royalty method? And that's the big question. Do you think that
it's just going to be a flat check? It's going to be like, hey, we want to pay you X amount of dollars, and the big players are going to go, no, I don't want. I need thousands of dollars, and they're going to go, we don't make that much profit off this game to give you that. So no, I'm sorry.
Well, that's
what EA is going to do. So if this game works, it'll be a year or two, and then it's done. Or they'll have to restructure how they do it.
I don't think that'll work out that way, because the big thing I look at was that when you came to 2014 NCAA football, they sold 1.5 million copies. That is no small amount for a video game whatsoever. Now, yes, Madden has always been their cash cow, but NCAA was always the game where they tested out new game mechanics, new game modes, and everything that ended up transferring into Madden. Because it's funny, look how far Madden has fallen with its gameplay ever since NCAA went away. That is huge. Now you're talking about a $60 game, 1.5 million. That's a huge amount of money you're making. Now, when looking at it from the flip side, I don't think they'll go to royalty style like what they do with musicians, for instance, where you sell so many records, you get a royalty off it because you make music.
But it's going to be a flat check that they're going to pay the players before they even put them in the game.
But the thing is, so many players want this game already. A lot of them said they would just do it for free. Now, I'm not saying all players are going to take that approach, but I don't think it's going to end up being just a few $100s. I think a lot of these players are going to end up making at least a minimum of $500 or more to be able to have their image or likeness put in this game. And I think all players are going to go ahead and accept that. And the thing is, even if they don't, guess what? NCAA can turn around and put a randomly generated player right in its place. And that's the beauty of it.
I don't think it's going to work out as well as everyone thinks it will. I really don't. The NCAA is going to find a way. They're going to find a way to make this not fun or make this not happen. Because I also think that some players are going to, a lot of the players say, yeah, I'll sign it off for free so I can do it. Bull. You know what? When they see their name in there, and they're going to be like, man, I could have made some money off this. But you're going to have the big-time players, the ones that are guaranteed, essentially, to make the NFL. Mm-hmm. Let's say, for instance, you had a Jadeveon Clowney if this was going on. Mm-hmm. You mean to tell me he wouldn't go, no, I need like $50,000?
Yeah, then you're going to get laughed in your face because you're a college athlete who's proven nothing yet.
But that's what some players are going to do.
Oh, I'm not arguing that.
And
fact.
it's going to hit a roadblock. I will not believe the NCAA on any of this Fair Play to Play Act until I actually see it in action.
But that's the beauty of it. You don't have to, because the NCAA, the power's been taken away. The NCAA has lost all power in this. Sure, they can make their own bylaws and try and make it easier, but
how have they lost all the power?
Because states have already started taking that power into their own hands, as well as federal legislation. So
is anything passed? Is anything passed yet?
Not well. California's Fair Play to Play has, and
when
that's
is it going into play?
Domino.
When's it going into play?
2023. But
there you go. Look how many years you got.
Yeah, but that's just for California. The thing is, if federal legislation comes out, it's already superseding everything else. Other states can also deem their own timetables like Florida, for instance,
right,
wants theirs to roll out in 2021. Minnesota wants theirs rolled out by 2022. These individual states can already go ahead and determine when theirs will come out. But if federal legislation takes and supersedes, like we've already said, we're probably going to end up with something realistically in the next 2 years. That's going to supersede everything. But at this point, the power is out of the NCAA's hand. That's why they even went out and made the announcement that they're going to change the bylaws, because their hand was already forced. And the NCAA at this point, now that the ball's already rolling, are going to lose all power in this, because it's going to be done outside of the collegiate model. Because there's no way this is going to be done inside it. There's no way. So what ends up happening is that they're just going to contract with the schools individually. They'll contract with the athletes individually, and the NCAA will be cut out altogether. This
is going to get dragged out for way too long.
I agree on that.
So, I mean, even if the federal government does in the next 2 years pass a federal pay-to-play act, guess what's going to happen? Right, what's going to turn around? NCAA is going to turn around and either take some sort of legislation, sue, whatever they have to do.
But what power do they have at that point to be able to do so?
It's going to have to go to Supreme Court. And you're not, realistically, yes, it'd be awesome if we could get an NCAA game back. I'm not expecting it at least for another 7 years.
Ooh, I think it'll be happening a lot sooner than that.
No, absolutely not.
3 minimum.
No.
3. Because the thing is, like I said, NCAA has no power. Even if they want to try and challenge it, just because you're the governing body does not give you the standing to be able to do so. Because the federal legislation supersedes, there's literally nothing they will be able to do. They are a governing body. They are not the end all be all to decide what these schools do.
They will take them. They will take them to the Supreme Court, and it'll get dragged out for another year or two. And that's to say that that senator in Ohio does it, and they pass it in 2021, and they say this will take effect in 2023 or 2022 or whatever year.
Right.
NCAA is going to come around and challenge it all the way to Supreme Court. Nothing's going to happen until at least 2024. And then they need another year or two to develop the game. 2026, you're almost 10 years out.
Thinking about it from there, I don't think the NCAA has the right to be able to even challenge this.
Yes, they can.
Body. I don't think they will.
Because
they're already backtracking at this point, showing that at this point, you don't have the power. That's why they're trying to change the bylaws as it is. They're not
NCAA has great lawyers. There's no way you can tell me
who has better lawyers? The federal government.
The federal government doesn't give a crap.
The federal government definitely gives a crap, or there wouldn't be legislation or worry about what's happening with the collegiate model as it is.
The states and the states care about it from their constituents, but the federal government really doesn't care.
The federal government does, or there wouldn't be legislation to begin with.
This does not have anything to do with the federal government.
Sure it does. Because this goes into antitrust laws. This goes into all different areas of law that the NCAA has been literally using on borrowed time, because they've been able to push the collegiate model, quote unquote, just because of the fact that, we give you a scholarship. Oh, now we give stipends, which has only happened over the past 5 to 10 years. And now because the next part is fair pay to play.
They evaluate what the money value of a scholarship is, and they say that's how much we're paying you. We're paying you that much money in tuition.
But do they see that money, and does it cover all of their actual living expenses? Because that's the biggest problem, is that if you have someone, say like a Martell Tate, who comes from a well-to-do family, you're not going to have much issues when you're away at school.
Absolutely.
Because you have your family able to support you, because by NCAA bylaws, you're not allowed to hold a job. So on the flip side, though, you get a lot of these guys, and for an example, we'll say Miami. Miami has a lot of schools that are in a lot more impoverished areas, where you have a lot of these athletes who come out and go to these big time programs at Alabama or Florida or Georgia, Miami, what have you, and are not able to pay their day-to-day expenses because they just don't have the money to do so, and end up in situations where they're not eating properly. They're not able to drive a car because they don't have the money to pay for the insurance or even for the stickering to be able to have it on school property.
Or even gas.
Or gas even. And things like that the scholarships do not cover. That's why we ended up with a stipend package anyways, was to try and help cover those things. But not all schools have it, nor are they actually required to have that right now.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing of why we even saw all this happen to begin with, is that you see these universities and the NCAA benefiting by the millions of dollars to be able to sit back and not do anything for these athletes.
I'm with you on all that. I'm just saying don't be expecting to see an NCAA football game in the next 3 years. It's not going to happen.
Depending upon how the dominoes fall. And that's going to be the big key. But we do both know that the gears of government grind stupidly slow.
Exactly, which is why I'm saying I don't even expect to see it for at least 5. I'm saying 5 to 7 years.
The big thing I see is I don't know if the NCAA is still going to have a leg to stand on, because depending upon how the dominoes fall, if enough states ratify a fair pay to play act in any kind of form, you're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot if you try and battle this further, because it's going to be a guaranteed losing battle, I feel like.
And they will fight it tooth and nail.
And then maybe we'll
keep
finally
the
see
power.
the NCAA go away.
I'm hoping so at some point.
We are hoping.
If this is the way that they're going to continue to conduct business that they have over the last 100 years, absolutely get rid of them.
Absolutely.
Try to find a better model.
And that's what I worry about is how they want to make things fit in the collegiate model.
My worry is that if we get rid of the NCAA, what better model could you use for nonprofit organizations such as schools to fit into a system?
That's something that bothers me too. Is they say they're nonprofit even though they reap millions, but that's another argument entirely.
No. They are nonprofit because all the money, they don't make money off of my tuition. My tuition that I spent and I'm still paying for is money that goes back into the school, back into the program. That's nonprofit. The money that they get for the stadiums, all that kind of stuff, those are donor dollars. That has nothing to do with making money off players.
There's still a lot more that goes into that because we even look at the NFL, who stayed as a nonprofit up until 6 years ago. So
right.
But I'm just saying, there's so much gray area when it comes to being a true nonprofit, I feel like.
I agree, but I think NFL is a little different because you literally have to go through. It's run as a business, and the ownership group or the owners, they buy it like a business. Colleges, you can't do that.
No, you can't. That's
colleges are institutions that are through the government that are nonprofits
and still making a stupid amount of money. I'm not saying off tuition. I'm saying as a whole.
As a whole, I mean, all that money goes right back into schools, though. So it
or into nice hefty bonus checks, or to the great salaries of the presidents, chancellors, and coaches, and stuff like that. But
does
all under the rug.
I mean, when you've got a school that's tops in the nation, like two of these here. Wouldn't you pay your?
God, I hate that you had to point at me for both of those.
Yeah, these two right here. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you pay your president of a university for running such a good university?
I mean, as long as we don't end up with Penn State issues, I guess so. But either way, though, we're going to move on to the week ahead. A lot of great things coming up this week, including the start of the college basketball season, which kicks off on Tuesday, November 5th. And I tell you what, there are some doozies for matchups.
Yeah, of course, the big tournament that is kicked off right away. You've got Kansas versus Duke. Kansas being number 3 in the preseason poll, Duke number 4. And then the later game, number 1 Michigan State versus number 2 Kentucky. Big games on Tuesday night. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I love college basketball, so I'm glad it's back.
It's going to be exciting. And Michigan State number 1, how'd that happen?
It's the first time they've ever been preseason number 1.
Yeah, so we'll definitely see how a lot of this will shake out. Also, NCAA college football week 11, some big matchups, including undefeated Penn State taking on undefeated Minnesota. That's going to be a huge matchup in the Big Ten. And of course, the big one that everybody's looking at right now, number 1 LSU traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on number 2 Alabama. Man, that's going to be a game.
Both of those games are going to be off the charts. They're going to be great. I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State kind of takes it to Minnesota a little bit. But hey, they've been playing so well already this year, and my guy PJ Fleck, he's got the Gophers. He's got them rolling.
Got them rolling. Got him doing it. And we'll definitely see how that all shakes out. But, of course, we can't forget that we got all this NFL action happening today. A lot of games have just kicked off in the past half hour, so definitely make sure that you hop on over and check those out. But also, make sure you check out all of our posts on social media at PCN Final Score on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and check out our myriad of updates and graphics that we post, mainly because of that great guy with that beautiful mug over there. So definitely make sure you check all that out. And, of course, check us out on our myriad of different platforms that we're on, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn, and, of course, Google Play Music. Just search keyword Final Score. Then make sure to check mark, to give us a like, give us a follow, hit the notification so you can get updates every time we post new content. And we're always posting something. It's always a fun time here.
Always something out there.
Always something out there. But until next week, definitely make sure that you check us out because we love you guys. Please do so. And also make sure you check out, we're going to have our new question of the week that you can go on and leave a comment on that might get featured on Final Score. So maybe go on there, go check it out and see what we got going on our social media. Again, at PCN Final Score. But sadly, this is the end of episode 34. Thank you so much for joining us here on Facebook Live. It's been a wonderful time. I can finally take all this crap off because it is burning my skin to death. I am so done. God, I cannot wait to make you wear your name gear.
Are you ready to wear USC gear when you lose that Urban Meyer bet?
my God.
that we're about to make?
Check back next week and we'll see what happens with that bet because I got a lot to think about. Either way, though, I'm Chris. That's Craig.
He's a winner. I'm Gardner Minshew.
And you just watched
Final Score.
Have a great night.
Podcast City Network.